Good evening, everyone. Today is December 10th, 2025. This is a meeting of the Gloucester School Committee. We are meeting at Gloucester High School Library at 32 Leslie O. Johnson.
Could you repeat that, please?
Sure. I will state the mission for Gloucester Public Schools is for all students to be successful, engaged, lifelong learners, and state the mission for Gloucester Public Schools. Okay, we're going to stand to salute the flag, and I would like you to join me in a moment of silence. Flag of the United States of America, and to the republic which stands one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you all. Okay, we would like to do a little bit of a roll call of things around the table. We'll start with Stephanie.
Stephanie DeLisi, reporting secretary.
Sophia Ferrara, part of the executive board as secretary.
Jessica Harvey, treasurer of the executive board.
Great, very good, Mayor.
Keith Mineo with the school committee.
Bill Melvin, School Committee.
Kathy Clancy, School Committee.
Laura Weason, school committee.
Chairman McKeon, school committee. Ben Lummis,
Amy Costello, assistant superintendent.
Dr. Michael Jarvis, Director of Special Education.
Molly Carmody, preschool special education teacher.
Deb Kelly, preschool program leader.
And I know we have many other people here that we will meet when it's time for that agenda item. Okay, first order of business is oral communications. The public shall have the opportunity at every regular school committee meeting to be heard under oral communications. Oral communications shall allow any resident who has a request or a complaint of any nature relative to the school committee business to appear before the school committee, state their position, state their problem without debate, and the matter may be referred to the proper subcommittee. For items that are on the agenda, members of the public may address the committee with permission of the chair. Persons speaking under oral communications shall be limited to 3 minutes each and shall submit a copy of their prepared communication to the recording secretary. If there is anybody present or online, that, please.
Good evening. My name's Mike Johnson. I live at 1214 Schoolhouse Road. I'm going to read what I got. Schools are a certain calm and pleasant place where we send our children to learn. Or at least it should be. Not Gloucester, it's not. The past year has been particularly toxic. There was a crippling strike in autumn of 2024. Behavioral chaos at the Amelia School in 25. The surprise retirement of the superintendent in September of 25. And the first law of holes is now screaming, stop digging. Two superintendents at the same time is an unsettling to both students and teachers. Lame duck superintendent and the superintendent-elect won't work well. Lame ducks are inherently ineffective. A superintendent-elected appearing forced to defer to her new status will build her credibility and influence erode. Members of the school committee reduce the toxicity, they expedite the transition of the superintendent, Mr. Lummis, an accommodation to depart early, say at the first of the year, allow Ms. Pasquarello the full scope and the rest of the school year to advance and implement the policies. Thank you.
Great comments. See no hands online and no one else. We will move on to the to recognition. No, actually, I want to make a comment as the chairperson. even though it's kind of recognitions. I neglected to not mention Ethan Foreman last time before his last day at the Gloucester Daily Times. Ethan has been a very dedicated reporter, and I think reporting these days sometimes is a little biased, and I know from Ethan his hard work and his research and his ability, I think, to express sometimes very difficult concepts or difficult topics in an unbiased way. He always presents multiple sides and gets information. So I really appreciate him, and I will miss him, and I will miss his informing me as a resident of Gloucester about other things other than school committee business. So I know we all wish him well, and I will send him a letter on our behalf to thank him for his efforts on behalf of keeping the public informed of good things in our schools all the time, and always being there for us. Sorry. Okay, regular recognition.
Yes, just want to recognize the National Arts Honor Society. They had a ceremony last week that was outstanding, and it was great to see some new students be inducted into the NAHS. And also want to thank the staff that hosted the event, Lorinda Cerruti, Emily Harney, and Helen Duncan, who all did a great job with the art display after the ceremony, and it was well done. So round of applause. So hats off to those that were involved in the NAHS.
I just want to recognize the O'Malley chorus who was standing outside in the frigid air last night at Addison Gilbert. As they, I think it's called Something of Love, but it was Mr. Menezes was there leading his crew, and they sat there and it felt like it was 0 degrees and everyone sang beautifully. So hats off to everyone who made that happen on such a frigid night.
Great. Great. Okay. We will move on to the Gloucester High School Student Advisory Council, and welcome and thank you for being here.
To go off on NHS for the induction night from last Thursday. They're also selling handmade items outside the cafeteria throughout this week with beautiful crafts. And then last Friday, we also had a blood drive, which saved 93 lives. And then the freshman class had a 525 fundraiser Monday night, which was a great success. And then the Youth Advisory Council is doing the holiday cards during lunch for a local nursing home. GHS Youth Advisory Counselor, Ms. Simon Jones, led YAC's Kindness in Action Project, a 4-week innovative where students created handmade cards during lunch. By the end, about 400 cards were made. They will be delivered throughout the holidays to 2 Cape Ann nursing homes, the Gray Center, Action Inc., and then Adult Foster Care of North Shore. And then a special thanks to the art teachers, Ms. Rudy and the National Art Society, and the librarian, Ms. Texera, for encouraging students to participating, and to all GHS students and staff who contributed to that event.
We have had a new tradition started for the afternoon announcements, where we have mystery singers, and last week was Miss Lothers. The door decorating contest is happening tomorrow. The holiday concert will take place on December 18th at 6:30 p.m. in the auditorium. The concert will feature the O'Malley Concert Band and Chorus, as well as the GHS Chorus and Jazz Band. All donations will go to the Gloucester Schools Music. 6 students have interviews for internships in the next few weeks at 1623 Studios, Applied Materials, the Open Door, and the Story Library. Ms. Royal and Ms. Morris collaborated with Beauport Ambulance Services to bring their Director of Education to GHS during homework next week, and they will do an informational meeting for students interested in emergency services.
Yeah.
A question about the mystery singer.
Yeah.
Do they have to be talented or?
I would say Ms. Lothers great.
No, it was not a comment.
Well, I do the announcements, the afternoon announcements, and I don't even get to know Miss Alves shoes, so it's whoever Miss Alves is talented in.
Okay, but there has to be a certain talent that we believe. This isn't just like.
I don't know how far away. I don't know.
Just
That's
curious.
what I'm saying there. I
Great,
don't know.
great. Love to hear something. Thank you.
Do people try to guess who it is?
So it's the 5th caller. So I think it was Mr. Enos's room got it. You have to, have to call the Miss all the time, but she like locks the door and everything, so me and like my friend who do it can't say who it is, so we don't cheat.
That's
There's
great.
gonna be people like scouting out her office in short order.
That's fun.
Great.
Very fun. Okay, any other questions? Thank you for being here. We love it as always, but.
Thank you so much.
We know it's busy.
Have a great night.
Thanks for being here. Okay, next item of business is the consent agenda. Does anybody have any items they would like to? Seeing none, maybe have a motion.
I move that we, okay, consent agenda as well.
Second.
Moved and seconded, all in favor, say aye. Next item of business is deliberations on education issues and the superintendent's report.
So good evening, everyone. Great to see all of you here. We have a full night, but later you're going to hear from some fantastic educators who are working across our schools and our special education programs. We're really excited to have our colleagues here tonight. Let me just start the presentation here to give my report of some of the things that are going on around our district. You know, to do this after 7 minutes. Okay, here we go. So, as we say in the Gloucester Public Schools, every day matters, everybody belongs, and every student learns. So, I'll give my report, special education update, and then we'll talk about budget priorities for FY 2027, the beginning of that process. So, Gloucester Preschool, as they've done for a few years, Gloucester preschoolers are painting buoys for the lobster trap tree that's going to be out in the Coast Guard station. On the pier there. It's great fun for the preschoolers and great and real big help from Art Haven on this. Great help, of course, from the preschool teachers as well. And then the result, obviously, is stupendous. I'm not sure it's the largest lobster trap Christmas tree around, but it seems like it's the biggest of all time. It's a wonderful occasion. So I really appreciate it. Those are some great goals from our kids. So West Parish, the wingmaster visited West Parish, like he does visit some of our number of our schools. And here we are having students from West Parish learning about adaptation and behavior and vision and words like bird of prey and camouflage. I really appreciate the wingmaster coming in and helping our students learn about fabulous birds. Also, West Parish, they started Module 2 in Wit and Wisdom. This is grade 2, sorry, on the early American West. And since we're working together on the main idea of different sections of the buffalo or bat. So, excellent. I don't know what they're doing left there, but it looks like fun and learning filled. Great. East Veterans has a bit of a dynasty going, which everyone should know about. Whenever they are in the Christmas tree parade, they win. Okay, and that's 3 years out of 4 now. Only time they didn't win was, I think, last year, perhaps. And they won first place again this season. So all I have to say is good luck to everyone else next year. Beeman had their elementary school holiday on December 7th. And apparently they're taking photos of teams. The great photo, 5th grade team there on the left, everything great. And then the Beeman raffle winners got a motorcycle escort and a police car and told the courthouse here in Gloucester. So congratulations to the raffle winners there. Sarah, great. Middle school. Just an announcement. Senator Bouchard announced that he was able to secure a $100,000 earmark to invest in the Science Center, Science Central, at O'Malley. So another way the community, in this case Senator Tarr and the state legislatures, are supporting our schools, and really appreciate it's going to help support equipment and materials for Science Center at O'Malley. So really appreciate his leadership and his support. Gloucester High School, so also there's science there at GHS, and then on the right is a picture of the National Honor Society inductees. I believe there are 22 students inducted to the Honor Society, and as Mr. Melvin did, want to thank Marina Cerrito, Emily Carney, and Helen Duncan for the leadership on this. This is, I think, now we're in our third year of the National Art Honor Society. I just really appreciate not only their leadership, but also them giving the students leadership opportunities as well. And the Art Honor Society members have been great at help supporting Beaman and other schools and getting out in the community and sharing their art and sharing the value and wonder of art. I really appreciate their work on that. Our NJROTC company did a drill meet last weekend, and they earned 2 third place trophies. You can see that we are hosting the drill meet, which is pretty excellent. And so 2 third place trophies for them, and it's great work. And then we had at Gloucester High School, the Chopped champion, who also lives in Gloucester, Sang Lee, came to talk to students in Mr. Francis's food, culture, and tourism class. Mr. Lee runs Sushi Sang Lee on Prospect Street. And it's a small restaurant, but it offers an 18-course omakase menu as part of the dining experience. You see the students down there below with Chef Lee after the visit. So really appreciate always as we like to do more and more, have our students go out in the community and also bring the community to our schools as well, and have students learn about just what's going on in the world and also just great connections with the Gloucester community.
I've heard excellent things about his business.
Great, excellent, fantastic. To go there. So that's what we have for tonight on my report, and just a brief one because we're gonna hand it off over to the crew here. Let me just.
Can I just?
Oh, yeah, yeah.
You missed
Go ahead.
the most important part about the East Feds Club was the musicians. One being former school committee member Joel Baza on guitar, and of course my fellow bassist Matt Fusco, and he showed me his bass before the event. He was very proud of it, and I was a judge, but I let my wife do the judging because they didn't feel it was appropriate.
To navigate the conflict of interest there, very nicely done. Yes, Mr. Fusco is very proud of his not only his instrument but his musical ability. Thinks quite a bit of it, and but thank you for helping out with that because obviously first place, right? We started then, so thank you for the detail on that, Mr. Mayor. I had not heard all, so thank you for sharing. Appreciate that. So what we're going to do tonight is give the school committee an update on special education. And we're going to do a deep dive into programs, okay, that are happening, or just our programs. I'm going to hand it off to Mike Jarvis in a second. But one of the things we want to really highlight, the reason we want to go is every year we give updates on special education and other pieces, obviously. Our goal really is to help educate the committee and through the public about some of the great things that are happening in our schools. And obviously this past year, we've been working on this area for a while, but particularly this for FY26, the school committee has approved and invested in, and the community has invested in quite a bit in our special education approach, and specifically in our programs. And so really wanted to highlight the progress we're making, but also help you understand more of how our staff work with our students. And so Mike Jarvis is going to give us an intro, and then we're going to have some of our great educators from across the district help teach you and help you learn about their work, their colleagues' work, and also the students' work. So, Mike, take it away.
Great. So thank you for having me here tonight and speaking to our changes with special education that we have underway. So just some context in with this. So this is, it's been a year and a half for me in the district as director of special education. I can't tell you how proud and excited I am about that. To go back into the context, it's the first 6 months last year, what I did was spend some time with assessment. So I performed what I call a soft audit. I took data points from a multitude of student profiles, parental anecdotes, teacher anecdotes, building principles, and really what I did and then walkthroughs, observations. Well, for the last 6 months of the first 6 months of last year, I really went to dipstick in to see what's Gloucester Public Schools all about in the way of special education. What do we do well? What don't we do well? What do we do and what do we don't do? Where are there gaps? And so what I found here, and I don't want to make an overgeneralization here with this, what I found for that 6 months off audit is that special education was largely working as independent agents. So we had special education teachers that would be covering caseloads, pulling kids out, trying to manage all of those pull-out services. So leaving the general ed class, going to sub-separate classes. And that was almost the exclusive delivery model that was being done here in Gloucester Public Schools. So in doing that, there are some issues with that. It's a reactionary way of reaching and teaching kids. It's reactionary. Kids aren't doing well in general ed, we're pulling them out and trying to catch them up. We don't catch them up because when they're pulling them out, they're also missing general education, which is a problem, right? We shouldn't be hijacking general education for the sake of special education. Special education is a value-added service. It's not a destination. Okay? So that leads me to work for ways to provide evidence-based practices that improve student outcomes, not in a reactionary way, but in a proactive way. Well, that's the context of this. Ben changed the slide on me on the fly, so I'll go with it. But so here at Gloucester Public Schools, we believe that students with disabilities should be educated with students who don't have disabilities, right? We shouldn't be pulling kids out and separating them from kids with disabilities and general ed. Then we'll have two operating systems. That's very problematic for student outcomes with disabilities and frankly for all kids, right? So the idea here is that we have to build inclusion services, right? And this is all in the context of a system of support. So what I mean by that is a system of support is making sure that we have each entity. I'm going to go through with you and talk through how they interact with each other, how they integrate with each other, how we work and collaborate with each other to get at the end, because it shouldn't just be general ed, it shouldn't just be special ed, it needs to be a collection of us, right? We have a range of students with some complicated needs. We have a range of needs that span social emotional needs, social pragmatic needs, educational needs. There's a wide variety of the whole child that we have to educate, and it's super important that the services go to the child with inclusion services rather than the child go to the services exclusively. It's real-time instruction that can be done in concert with the general ed. Our strategy with that is mainly co-teaching. I'll get into consultation in a moment. So it's co-teaching so that we find evidence-based practices to reach and teach the range of needs of our population. High performers, middle of the way performers, and performers that need more support, right? That's what inclusion services can do. 2 certified teachers in 1 classroom to work on specially designed instruction and evidence-based practices to meet that range of needs. Services. So services in the same way, we can't have services. So these are related services. So you can call it a reading specialist. You can call it speech and language, occupational therapy, and physical therapy. So these are related services. These services too can't be done in isolation and expect kids going to learn those isolated skills in the general ed setting without support. So it is super important that our services are tied to our inclusion program through consultation, not just direct services. Consultation is a big part of this system, right? We can't expect to have the generalization of these skills, which is application, right? After they learn it perhaps in a sub-separate environment without support. That has to be integrated with our inclusion program. And then lastly, with our programs. So our programs need to have a specialization to them. The gap last year that I found, after that first 6 months of that soft audit is that we didn't have specialization with our programs, redundancy with our programs. So in doing so, you can't specialize, and then you're missing out populations of kids, and you won't have a continuum of services that are vertically aligned. So it's super important that you have specialization of district programs, especially at the elementary level. And when we say we have programs, we have to make sure that they're not static programs. They have to continuously adapt to what our population is telling us. So annually, we go through this process, what I call the district renewal process. It already has begun in preparation for next year. And we look at a multitude of data points, just like we did with the soft audit, to see where our student population is telling us for students that are in our district placements, students that are in our general ed population, students that are in special education programs. And we do an analysis of this to make sure our programs remain responsive to what our population is telling us. Getting feedback from parents, getting feedback from teachers in the program, it's all part of this process. So it's not done independently, it's done with the multitude, it's multifaceted with a multitude of people. So that's our systems of support. It's super important to have these synergize so that we are working together, and the backbone of the district must be the inclusion program. It's got to be, right? So kids in it, remember I said, special education is not a destination, right? So even kids in programs should and will be flexing into the general ed setting. That's what the support is in the general ed setting. So there'll be a direct balance with that. Is that a question?
Yeah, first of all, I want to say thanks for this. I mean, you've spoken to us many times, but this really kind of encapsulates kind of your vision for the special ed program here at the school, and I appreciate that. As I was listening, it all kind of made sense to me, and then I thought, well, one thing I would probably like to hear at some point, like, and I'm sure after a year and a half, you've kind of at least been able to touch on this, is what are the challenges? What are the challenges that you found so far with inclusion? And, all this is great. When we unbox it, there's got to be some potholes or minefields there that you're now aware of, and how are we addressing those?
So what we'll do later in the year, because inclusion really is general education approach, right? It's how we teach all students, general education students with disabilities in the general ed classroom, okay? So it's not really just special ed, it's special ed and teaching and learning, right? So tonight we're focusing on programs, but later in the year, Amy will lead a presentation that's really focusing on inclusion, co-teaching, okay? What we really want to get across is that inclusion isn't special education, it's the combination, it's our general education approach. Okay. So yes is the answer to your question.
Once again, you've let me down softly on the fact that I got the cart before the horse a little bit. I think, like, you're going to be able to later in the year we're going to learn.
But really, it's just because we always focus on so much,
Right. Totally understand.
Tonight's mostly on district programs, and for that matter, not all of them.
Yeah.
We will talk about them, but we'll have more direct presentations on a portion of them.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, let me just
Sure.
reiterate that I just like the way you've kind of laid out your vision here and what it looks like, and I think you've done a really good job of it. So.
Can I push a little bit on that? So I thought we would hear more tonight, based on what Bill asked also. So my question now is, we're getting into budget development, time of the year. That's information I would have wanted sooner. But it's okay that doesn't happen so long as the superintendent is pushing whatever needs you see forward before we get to the time when you're gonna present that, knowing that the budget starts first.
Yep.
So, do you understand what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah, I don't.
what
You
you've
want a clear
discovered,
depiction of
and
what's going
if you
on.
need support in certain areas and we need to hear it for
Yeah.
budget development.
Right.
I don't wanna wait until March or April, knowing we're doing that work soon.
What you'll hear is most likely in our budget priority presentations that this year we're going to be having in February. Because remember, at one point, teaching and learning gave the whole presentation on priorities, okay?
Right.
We'll have it there. You'll have it as part of the budget process. Absolutely.
Yeah.
That's all. I mean, I can't wait to hear that, and like Bill said, I was expecting that tonight, but it's okay as
Yeah.
long as it's included.
So just so So that work has already begun, actually, so I'm already doing that work in concert with a multitude of folks that are here tonight. And looking at where our next steps are, you know, and also with the principals and where what the next steps is for inclusion and how we're gonna do that.
Because I would expect that we're gonna increase co-teaching over the next fiscal year, assuming that's gonna be part of your conversation in a couple months.
Okay, so here's a list of, oh, sorry. Yeah,
You know, I just wanted to like say a few things before we move on, because special education is such a broad range of situations. You know, autism is a spectrum, kids with dyslexia, things like that, right? That's such a large swath.
Yeah.
And in this inclusion practice, you're saying we don't want to compartmentalize these students from general ed. We want to unify general ed. But in effect, with the co-teaching model, we are sort of compartmentalize them in the same room at the same time. So some students will need some special instruction in the same room. So are we effectively
so
compartmentalizing in this same classroom?
yeah, so I offered a PD, a professional development on how to deliver a range of co-teaching strategies. So it's not compartmentalized and it's not just one side of the room is general ed, the other side is special ed. So that strategy on how to deliver evidence-based practices. I call it the 3 M's. So there's the model, methodology, and adaptive materials. And by using those strategies, you hit the range of learners in the classroom without even identifying kids who have a disability or don't have a disability. You wouldn't necessarily know.
Yeah.
It's all strategy.
Yeah, back to the spectrum thing though. I'm sure there's a certain level of needs where, they're so great that, that they would be disruptive, because you say, this is evidence-based.
Yeah.
It's good for the general ed students with no disabilities, as well as those with disabilities. And I have no doubt there's certain aspects of that, but what is the evidence base that inclusion is good for, all performance levels?
Sure.
So we've been working with improving having students with IEPs in the tier 1 instruction for a while, before co-teaching was brought up. So a year or two, probably 3 years ago at this point, we talked about introducing a win block, what I need at the elementary level. And what we did that for is so that when students do have to get pulled out, and there are times, and Dr. Jarvis will talk about when students do need to be pulled out for specific services. But when they do need to be pulled out, they're not missing tier 1 instruction, that same instruction, and that's where we want the inclusion part. We want students to hear the same vocabulary, the same history, the same science facts. We want them to be part of the tier 1 instruction, because if they are missing that, we're not closing the gap at all. If they can't read the large vocabulary words, but they can hear them and understand them, they're going to be able to read them better when their reading catches up.
Yeah.
So it's important that we have them in for the tier 1 instruction as often as possible with their peers and role models. And by bringing a special education teacher into the classroom for co-teaching, they're able to, instead of separating the kids, I'm going to teach these kids and you're going to teach those kids. It really, and what as a whole district we need to do is, they're our kids, they're Gloucester kids. We all of our teachers are responsible for all of our students. And through the co-teaching, which we are in the baby sense of it, we're growing, we're learning, right? But when it is in full swing and working well, and it's starting to in places, right? The teachers are able to go plan with each other and go off of each other, saying maybe one teacher's talking about content, the other one's going to focus on the language skills necessary to access the content. So they might be previewing the vocabulary for students who need it, and they really go back and forth. And both teachers should be able to teach and work with all students in the classroom. Just because you're a special education teacher doesn't mean you only work with special education students.
That sounds great and all. It's just like I'm trying to get to the point where I'm understanding, because I've visited classrooms. There are kids with who are nonverbal.
Yeah.
And we're involving those students
So
as
we
well?
will still have sub-separate programs, and you're actually gonna hear about some of our sub-separate programs tonight. That's
Okay.
gonna be a large.
So like,
focus
I'm
in the
trying to,
presentation.
imagine how big this inclusion umbrella.
Yeah,
If you know what I mean.
so it's important to know that it goes through team process. So through team process, we do the team does analysis based on our performance and evaluation results and makes a determination on what's appropriate.
Mhm.
And then, so within the system of support, it's so important that we have that in place so that increases the capacity in the inclusion environment, along with consultation for kids with autism, whether they have a device to communicate or might need social pragmatic support. So that's part of really what we do, right? So it's through the team process and it's very individualized.
So we'll hear from the staff and teachers today exactly how there's moving between a program and the general classroom, okay? In different degrees based on the student and the program, okay? We'll get to that, okay? You wanna keep on going?
Yeah, so
So to set the scene now on district program.
yes, and I'll focus on district programs. So pre-K, there's a fully sub-separate program there. We'll get to that with the presenters in a moment. And West Parish, we had expansion here with the teacher because of the numbers were so high, right? So we've expanded on this program here. The Learning Center has remained in effect for some time. And we have not expanded there. At East Vets, we expanded there because of the numbers have significantly grown. And our language-based program has been intact for some time. And the Beeman therapeutic program is new, lower and upper. And so those are new programs to the district, so they didn't exist. So how would we be able to work with kids? And our district population is telling us that we have a cohort of kids that require social emotional support. Super important to have programming that reflects those kinds of needs. So O'Malley does a really good job in reflecting that continuum of services throughout, with therapeutic support, life skills support, language-based, social pragmatics, and a learning center, right? That pretty much represents all of our vertically aligned programs because we have the cohorts of kids that require those kinds of services. Please keeping in mind that that doesn't mean that when they're in these programs, they're allowed to be in these programs. Again, they can flex to general ed setting, and that's where our inclusion program would be working with them. High school, we have longstanding anchor program. What a program that is. It's great to see how they produce life skills. We have a great new instructor there doing great work. Our alternative program, we're in the process of revamping that program to make sure that it adapts to what our population is telling us. And then our post-grad program has been in play for some time, and they do a great job of connecting kids to the community and have meaningful opportunities throughout. So just wanted to get through some of these visuals, and this represents our programming for students with autism. So we have that preschool program fully separate. And then from there, as they make it through their vertical steps into lower elementary, if it's a less of a need, it would be the autism program would be at East Vets and would serve kids with that require full separate to inclusion. Whereas the West Parish right below is what we call discrete trials, which is very intensive support. So that's typically we'll have a lot of those students that we use devices. And then we so both programs at East Vets, because of our numbers, have a lower and an upper as we continue down, go right on this graphic. And then as they converge at O'Malley, at some point, sometimes kids progress through, it's anticipated they may not need a program or they might need much less of a program. And then that's the importance of that inclusion side of things. And then we have our life skills program as to finish out the continuum.
Hey, can I ask you
Yeah.
a quick question?
Sure.
Is the increase in numbers in autism that we're seeing, is that like a real increase in numbers or is it a change in diagnosis? Or,
Yeah.
How do you account for this?
Yeah, I can tell you that I think it's, I know it's every community. For the 12 years I was at my former I saw that just expansion over those years and having to, because we'll hear from the West Parish program, right? That's really intensive kind of work. So it's one-to-one student, one kind of instruction. And it's really intense and that we have, it's hard to have 10 kids in a classroom when you have that kind of intensive programming, right? Because of space, noise, right? It actually needs to be functional. And then you're gonna have to have that many adults if you're gonna have that many kids too, so it has to be functional. So I'll save most of that for
But there's just a real increase in the numbers.
Yeah,
Yes.
yeah. I'd say the largest increase, it used to be specific learning disability as a category of disability. It still is, that is still one of the leading ones, but really right behind that is autism and emotional category of disability. Hence our programming, so they're vertically aligned now, whereas they weren't before. So that's the adjustment that we needed to make. And then, therapeutic programs. So again, there were major gaps with this up until now, and we have our therapeutic program at lower and upper at Beaman. We have our middle school program, and then our anchor program. Anchor program has been in existence. Amy Camp has been involved with that one for so long. That's great work, as well as many others.
Just in terms of, we started off by talking about the investment that the committee and the community has made in their programs specifically. And so on this slide, last year we had the inventory program, the upper elementary, really the elementary level was started last year and O'Malley was started this year in earnest. So it's a very different slide than we would have seen in years past.
Yeah.
In recent years past.
Yeah. And then our language-based program at East Vets, 3 to 5. O'Malley Middle School has a program. The GHS is not colored in green because we don't have a program there as of yet. I'm doing an assessment and on this, or we are going to do an assessment in on what our demand is, what our need, what is our population telling us there? Do we expand on co-teaching? Do we expand on a language-based program? Right. So it's the student profiles that drive this. And then our learning center, we have that at West Parish. We have it at O'Malley, and our 900 classes represent the same kind of service. So there's a continuum of services that we have in place for our learning center. Learning center is a little bit different than the language-based program. On a clinical end, it gets more intensive instruction for a level of need.
So now we're going to hand it over to the programs in schools and our staff here. And we're going to start with preschool through elementary autism programs. And folks, as you go, if you can introduce yourselves, the committee would be great. And take it away. We'll start with the preschool.
Hi, I'm Molly Carmody. I teach the sub-separate preschool classroom. And I currently have 8 students. I'm getting more another student in January. I'm capped at 9. And I've been in Gloucester, this classroom, for 6 years now. My students some are identified with autism. Others have a variety of disabilities that impact their development across multiple domains. Some of those students will ultimately be diagnosed with autism, some won't. And my students are working on developing a combination of foundational skills for communication, self-regulation, adaptive living, social skills, academics, and motor planning. My students require low student-to-teacher ratio or one-to-one support for specifically designed instruction and monitoring for safety. Many of my students are learning to communicate through, actually, all of my students are learning to communicate through non-traditional modalities. Some of them have AAC, alternative augmentative communication devices. And we use a total communication approach in my classroom. So there's visuals, there's kids will use their body language. Yeah, some classroom devices. I'm pretty sure school committee last year, some of you walked through my classroom and saw some of this in action. And I work very closely with the speech therapist.
I'm Deb Kelly. I'm the program leader at the preschool. So I'm in and out of classrooms periodically, but overseeing IEP implementation, development, meetings, things like that. And once upon a time, I was Molly in that teaching in that classroom. So the intensive needs program at the preschool has been long in existence, long before my tenure in Gloucester, which is more than 20 years. But the program uses an individualized learning approach. It combines the principles of applied behavior analysis. So commonly you would hear that as just the acronym ABA with sound early childhood education pedagogy. So hands-on explorations, communication across lots of modalities, as Molly explained, lots of visual scope and support. We focus on helping each child learn based on where they are developmentally. So students could be coming in and they might have skills at maybe a 9-month-old level in some cases. That same student could have other skill sets that are, you know, in a 2-year-old level developmentally. The profiles are really uneven. The students are learning often for the first time how to be a member of a group and follow activities that are led by adults. Most often they don't have practice with that. We do have a really flexible building for inclusive practices. We're fortunate. So the students receive different levels of support and can spend time with classmates in different classroom settings or the playground, multiple opportunities for that. As the students get the basic skills they need, the foundational skills Molly was talking about, they often transition from our intensive program into lesser restrictive environments, sometimes for periods of time, and sometimes that's their trajectory educationally. Okay. We are fortunate to have a multidisciplined approach, and that means that the team sits, as Mike was talking about, in terms of consultation. Our programs have monthly consultation with all of the providers who might be involved with those students. So occupational therapist, physical therapist, speech and language pathologist, a BCBA, myself, Molly, school adjustment counselor. We would all be at the table planning and programming for specific students. And that includes their specially designed instruction. We used a lot of tools. We use visual tools, we use direct teaching practices, we use behavior support planning, task analysis, scaffolding across the school day, and that includes all of their meal times and their recess. So staff is with them. They don't leave to go to a special or anything like that. It's all preschool staff. A typical school day for a preschooler, and even the preschoolers in Molly's classroom, includes large group activities, read alouds, typical things you would see in any preschool, small group instruction, and this specific classroom has scheduled individualized instructional opportunities. What Mike was talking about in terms of discrete trials, that would be the opportunities that the students are participating in that. Breakfast and lunch are served in the preschool classroom, and they're considered learning opportunities for students, particularly for communication and adaptive skills. And then students participate in activities across all areas of development. That includes music and movement, motor skills, cognition, academics, social skills, and artistic expression. And that team provides all of that all day.
So preschool is unique in that as the public schools become responsible for children's education at the age of 3, we have rolling admission. I've gotten students in my classroom as late as the end of May. So it's constantly, our numbers change frequently, which also impacts our staffing needs in the middle of the year. We do keep a low student to teacher ratio, as Mike was saying, it's 1-to-1 or 1-to-2, just to provide these supports my students need to be successful academically, to keep them safe. I have students that mouth, I have students that will elope, so we're working very closely on those needs. And then, as I said, staffing numbers in my classroom fluctuate based on enrollment. Full-time staff in my class include myself, a registered behavior technician or RBT, and classroom paraprofessionals. We work very closely with the occupational therapist, physical therapist, speech and language therapist, our BCBA, and our school adjustment counselor. So our speech therapist in particular provides a lot of services in the classroom, so she can help the students work on acquiring their communication skills where they need it, where they're going to be using it all the time, not in isolation. And those team meetings that we have monthly are very beneficial. And in the years I've been there, I've been supporting my students and watching them acquire communication, go from being nonverbal to being able to tell their parents they love them. My students, I often find myself saying the sentence at IEP meetings. My favorite and least favorite part of any IEP meeting is when I tell a parent that I have to move their child out of my classroom. I love my kids, but I also really love being able to tell the parents your child is doing really well, they're being successful. We're going to move them into a less restrictive setting where they can, one of the programs we have is really nice. We have a hybrid program, so it's partial inclusion, partial separate, and that's usually where my kids go. So they get more opportunities for inclusion, and they still have the separate support that they need. And I've seen students in 3 years go from fully separate to fully integrated, depending on the kids. And some kids stay with me for 3 years, and that's okay.
So I thought you were starting to say this. So preschool is not required.
It's through team process, it is, if you're eligible for it. it's
If you're
required.
eligible. So
Well,
so
it's
tell me
like,
about,
it's offered, right? It's required for the district to offer it.
right, that's right. But children
Parents
aren't
can choose not.
required
To go to
to go to
right,
preschool.
Massachusetts.
That's what I meant, sorry.
Yeah.
As children turn 3 years old, the children are receiving early intervention services that are identified with having a need. The school department becomes responsible for their education at 3 years old.
Once they've been identified.
Yes.
Yes.
So not every child is identified.
Correct.
Correct.
Right, I mean, that's a function of a family bringing a child to.
No, we have
services,
outreach.
Right,
We have outreach work, so they're not working independently. There's early intervention that is in play as well, and we have outreach to the community to make sure that they're aware of the services.
so part of my question is like the model, as I understand it, the preschool is you've got like model, you've got children with these special needs and then children who don't, and it's an integrated program. That's part of how it works. That's part of the benefit and the beauty of this
Correct.
program. I'm just wondering how you manage that with numbers, right? If there's required students who have to come in.
Yeah.
How does that work?
I can answer that. Every year is a little bit different, right? The needs of Gloucester shift and what's available in the community shifts. So we do have to be flexible, but typically we start the school year with a number of what I'll say slots that are available for students on IEPs, right? Because some of our kids graduate, so to speak, and go on to kindergarten. And as the year progresses, we start to fill up those spots based on students' needs. Generally speaking, for Molly's classroom, we have a larger indication of what's upcoming because we have a relationship with early intervention. So those meetings happen ahead of a student turning 3 years old, and we have kind of a projection of their needs. That doesn't mean that we don't have kids who move in like they would anywhere from the district, or also we find through child find, they come in and request an evaluation. You might know their siblings and they come in. They might be in other preschools in the district and they're making some referrals to us. So, or our staff, our itinerant staff that's out in that world might be making some referrals. So there's a number of ways that happens. And we have in the past had to find a classroom to open mid-year if we need to. We've had to morph rooms to provide for students. I mean, we have to be flexible. There's years where we have 2 of this type of room. There's years we might have 5 kids. There's years we might have 9 or 10 kids.
That answers my question. Thank you.
This is the sub-separate program. Your question was on the integrated program. So the question was also, so the part of the answer is the regulation is 50%. It's 50%. So your slot is usually 7 students receiving special ed services and 7 students that are general ed.
In the integrated.
That's the
class.
integrated, yeah.
I just want to build on Deb's excellent answer in the sense that you, as you talked about, and the life is, that, thing, changes along the course of the year. Because it is about whenever they turn 3. And just so folks know, there's the conversations around when we have intensive need kids coming. Andrew Perrell, the director, obviously, working closely, but also was with Mike and myself. Andrew has had countless meetings over the years. In August, September, October, we think about in the classroom, this is what's coming and sort of stuff. And so that we work closely together throughout the year because of what just Deb described so well.
Thank you. No, that really.
Is that helpful?
The movements of the variable, like that's for any of us though, for anywhere, we don't have control over that. They move in.
Molly's classroom is 1 classroom in a program that has 8 classrooms. And the majority of those classrooms are inclusion-based, integrated.
Thank you both.
Thank
You
you.
can stay for the rest. What I like to have is all the folks stay because, folks pre-K through elementary autism, if you may have questions that any of them can answer at the end.
Real quick, Molly, just on staffing, did you say that you have 1 ESP in your class?
I currently have 3.
3 years.
Yeah,
Okay.
I have students starting in January who requires 1-to-1 tutors all the time.
Okay.
So I had a staff member start last week in preparation for that student.
Okay, thank you. And the other thing I just wanted to say is that you don't have to be, I don't have to be the smartest guy in the room to say that just the work you do, I can tell you're just a great teacher and you do a wonderful job. So appreciate what you do.
Thank you.
You're saying that a lot to that, Phil.
All right, well, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank
Next,
you very much.
next on the docket, we have the RISE program at West Parish.
We'll introduce ourselves and then we'll teach a description of the program. So I'm Patty Bernhardt. I'm the assistant principal and special administrator at West Parish Elementary. This is my first year working in the Gloucester Public School District, coming from working in private and public school settings for many, many years as a psychologist and then as an administrator. So very excited to be a part of West Parish.
Hello, everyone. My name is Justine Melvin. I am a special education teacher in one of our K through 2 sub-separate classrooms. And this is my 2nd year at West Parish. Prior to that, I have experience working in early and beginning childhood and behavioral therapy as well.
So as you'll see on our slide, we wanted to capture the staff that really kind of make these programs thrive and run them day to day. So our kind of program leaders in each of the programs, you've met Justine. We have Julie Kunzer and all of the paraprofessionals in the second picture there. And then we have Simeon Meggs and his paraprofessionals who is new to West Parish this year, as well as Beth Murphy and all of her paraprofessionals. So I just want to recognize those folks because they're incredible educators. Everyone in these pictures do incredible work every day. And it's really, really, really hard work that they put in and day out. I'll kind of walk through the student profile of our programs, or just kind of an overview. So the students in these programs generally have 1 or more disabilities and typically present with very, very high level of needs across multiple domains. So that could be communication, it could be their social skills, their behavioral presentation, their academic skills, intellectually, even though I didn't put that in there, but that's to be a variable, and their adaptive skills, so kind of their ability to self-care and to kind of get through the day. Many of our students in these programs are non-vocal or non-verbal, so they do rely heavily, many of them, on communication devices, different modalities. Some use the AAC devices that the principal mentioned. Sign language is another modality, and gestures and things like that. So folks get very creative in the programs to make sure that we're giving them access to communicating with us effectively so they don't have words to do it in a traditional manner. The students also obviously highly benefit from
the individualized instruction that they're provided and the support they're provided throughout the day. So I'll touch a little bit on our, basically just our instructional approach in our scope and sequence. So our teaching relies heavily on evidence-based practices, including discrete trial training, or DTT, as was mentioned earlier. And basically what that is teaching by providing steps that are simplified, small, clear, lots of repetition, along with using positive reinforcement. And this is just a method to help our students, learn new skills and be able to generalize those skills through across environments. We use principles of applied behavior analysis, or ABA, as was also mentioned earlier. And that's basically a science-based approach. It helps our students, again, learn useful skills. The skill learning is super important. And the goal for that is then whatever skills they're learning, they're able to generalize. And that also is important because, a lot of what they're doing in school, they're able to, take some of that home, take some of that out in the community when they're with their family. Again, with that, they're learning in small steps, they're using lots of practice, and that reinforcement is really important for our students. That's just our way of being able to pat them on the back, tell them they're doing a good job, and really try to keep that momentum going for what they're learning. Also, we use lots of visual supports. If you come in our classroom, a lot of our areas are labeled, example, doors labeled, bathrooms labeled. We have visual schedules that the students, will see pictures that help them know where they should be, what they're doing, what's next, etc. A structured routine, which is really important for our students. They know what to expect, when to expect it. For example, they come in the morning, they know I'm taking off my jacket, that's being hung. For students that are eating, they may, go to the bathroom, wash their hands, then they come and they sit down. And it's basically the same thing every day because that routine is really important for them. Natural environment teaching, or net teaching is what we call it. It's just basically being able to use what is going on, for example, to teach our students. So I'm thinking specifically of a student of mine, something he's working on is being able to say no without necessarily becoming upset or and being able to vocalize, no, I don't want something. And so, right, exactly, in place of him having behaviors. And so, for example, I'll go through the line with him in the morning for breakfast, and I may hold something up that I know he doesn't like, but I'm still going to present it just because I want to be able to use that opportunity to have him say, no, I don't want that. Again, without being upset, without having behaviors. And task analysis, again, it's just teaching in steps. Teaching in steps is super important. Again, with for example, washing hands, you walk into the bathroom, now you turn on the water, now you wet your hands, you get the soap, and it's just really broken down. And again, for us adults in here, you may go into the bathroom and that's something that comes naturally to you, right? You know what to do. For our students, not so much, right? So it's so important that we teach them in that way. A little more of what we do. I know we've talked a lot about inclusive practices. Again, we do, although we are a separate classroom, we do have inclusive practices. So when our students are going to music, they're going with their general education students. When they go to PE or when they go to art. Also for our students, they have times where they can visit the classroom and maybe have snack with their peers. That's also a time for them to practice what we're teaching them and what they're learning. So for example, if a student is learning to, respond when someone calls their name, they walk into that room and a peer says, hi, John, for example, we're helping them be able to generalize, hey, I can say hi to that friend and use the skills that they have to do that. So that's why I know someone asked earlier about the inclusivity. It's important for our students because they can generalize their skills, but also for the students that are in those classrooms, it teaches them diversity, inclusiveness, compassion. At West Parish, we have some of the great, I think all of our students are great, but some of the students, they acknowledge our students, they say hi to them, they talk to them, they help them. And, it's great to see that at such a young age. And those are skills that will stay with them forever, hopefully, and, really impact them as they get.
And I would just go on to say, because I think you're humble, you won't talk about it. It's amazing how you'll notice on the slide it says as tolerated, to your point. I think the teachers in these programs are very careful and very skilled in assessing how much their students can tolerate being in the general ed classroom, because it's not always a pleasant scenario for them. Sometimes it is. Right, so if you go into a music class, they're known for scaffolding, like really thinking ahead, like maybe you don't go in for the whole class period, but they could tolerate it for 10 minutes. And that's a success for them to be in that classroom and be able to hear and listen to what's happening with the general ed peers, but then they leave. So it's really a strategic, it's an art to know how well, like when to bring them in and when to bring them out, because we also don't want to cause undue stress for them either. So I would give, kudos to all of our teachers to really use that judgment. They do it every day. Scaffold when they're included and when it's inappropriate.
Yeah, thanks for explaining that, because what I was trying to say earlier was like, I'm trying to imagine, okay, when I hear special needs, I think of like the entire umbrella, but now we're diving into, drilling down, we have intensive needs, which is at the far end of the spectrum. And that's, I guess, where my most concerns are. And to your point about, more of the general ed students with less challenges. I know from my experience with my son, it's like, we have a friend in Magnolia, she has some severe disabilities, but visiting her is so important to me, because they can see like some people have some really, really hard challenges in life.
Feels empathy, right?
Yeah, it's a great experience, so I'm glad there's that. Thing with like music classes is that
And it's
I think it's more easier to incorporate and
Right.
be inclusive.
Yeah.
That decision.
And then we have activities of daily living. So again, that kind of goes with our task analysis, but basically, for our students, we're teaching them self-care, communication, safety and functional life skills. I can't express enough just how important when we are teaching these things to the students, when we're working on these different areas. It's so important because there really is a crossover with what we're doing with them in school and how they're applying that at home. That generalization, I continue to say, is so important because, when you think of safety, self-care, for example, sitting at lunch with a student and helping them being able to use a spoon to eat. Again, that's something they'll go home and have dinner with their family and be able to sit at the table and eat. And then our next area is the behavioral support. And in our classroom or throughout the classrooms, what that looks like for each student will be a little different based off of what their needs are, what their behaviors are. With that, we are working on their functional communication, self-regulation, safety, which is really important. And how we work on that is basically using those visual schedules, as we mentioned before, the reinforcement systems. And again, each student has a behavior plan, if you will, and it's tailored to that student. So it basically states, if, for example, if a specific behavior is occurring, what you want to look for, how you're reacting to that, and how you're helping the student to be able to move forward from that.
And then in terms of the staffing support, you can imagine it's a very high level of need. So the programs have a high staff to student ratio, so it's generally 1-1 or 1-2 to ensure that students are receiving the attention, the individualized attention they need, and really consistency of implementing the behavior plans and the learning plans and the routines that are established in each program. Staff typically will include special educators, special education teachers, a BCBA or behavior analyst who is very closely working with the programs to help provide the behavior support plans and input on that. Paraprofessionals obviously are critical. The occupational therapists, the physical therapists, and the speech and language therapists will, you'll often walk into a program and see them, right there as part of kind of the support that the students are getting. So it's a collaborative approach for sure.
Quite the community. It takes a village, as they say.
It does, and I think, I just want to add, I think just, I'm only peripherally involved, but I can't emphasize more the work that these folks do is absolutely incredible. It's extremely stressful on some days.
But the work they're doing is really impacting these kids in such a positive way. And we hear it when we meet with parents, that generalization at home. They're so thankful that they have a team that's working with their student that then they can kind of collaborate with and have some success at home, so.
We'll move over to East Federer. Any questions for the East Parish team?
I think everybody's chiming in as we go.
That's true. I noticed that.
I just want to say, it's not a question. I think, Bill, you and I visited this classroom a couple of years ago, before Mr. Jarvis came or Dr. Jarvis came. And just the level of need was, was significant and very clear. I hadn't been into one of the classrooms and it was really eye-opening. And I just have such deep respect for the work that you're all doing. I mean, it's really amazing, special work.
It's intense, and I will say this, it's intense, and it's an opportunity for kids to receive a meaningful education within their home community. And out-of-district placements can't emulate what they do because the great work that they do is in concert with non-disabled kids as well. Out-of-district placements cannot do that. So having peer models for kids, super important, super important. The empathy that's learned on from the population at large is super important. So it's win-win.
Speaking to that, when we, you spoke before about trying to reduce the amount of out-of-district placements, and, have we progressed in that respect?
So I rather, the way I
We're
would
going to
capture
share
it,
with that later tonight.
Okay.
the way I capture that is that I want to build meaningful programs for kids to access a rigorous curriculum and make progress in district with their non-disabled peers. As opposed to saying that that's a byproduct of what we'll do. That's not the target. The target is providing robust instruction because we can control that here. We can't control that in out-of-district placement. We have no control over that. So that could be the end result, but really it's really focusing in on our programs and making sure they have specialization, clinically focused with our clinical teams, and we're leveraging all those, our staff for all those data points I talked about. So we're vertically aligning our programming, which is an annual thing that we're going to do. So that we're adapting to what our population is telling us.
Can I ask, how many students are in the RISE program and how much staff do we have with the positions?
I can speak for my classroom. So in my, in my classroom, we have 6 students and 4 staff, including myself.
That's pretty typical across the board.
And in there's 2 classrooms?
4
programs.
programs.
All right.
Yeah, 3.
It's 1-to-1 or 1-to-2 student ratio, student to staff ratio. Yeah, 6, I would say.
And there's Paris in these classes as well?
And so you'll see the slide before, those are the staff for each of the programs.
So there's 4 programs at four program classrooms at West Parish, 3 focus on autism, and the 4th, I want to say, life skills.
It's the learning center is a little
Learning
bit
center,
different,
Yeah,
the students, I think it's highly modified academic curriculum, where they can tolerate more of the general curriculum that's incorporated, but, often those kids have slower processing speed and some intellectual challenges, that make it learning a bit difficult. So it's a little bit different, but the same ratio.
And do you get students that come in mid-year, do a newer or updated diagnosis, or I'm not asking about move-ins to the district.
Right.
So I'm just trying to find out
So I can help with that.
flexibility there.
Yeah, so we have a district referral process.
Yeah.
So as part of that process, any of our students in our population, it could be presented out by one of the program leaders through this process, presented to the other program leaders. I facilitate this process, and we do the analysis of the profile, and we discuss what the best placement would be if indeed a change of placement would be at hand. And we discuss that, the merits of that, and we go through team process. So it's not a predetermination, it's actually making sure that we have, when we go through team process, we have the right people there to speak to really what the child's needs are.
I'm just trying to learn how to be flexible with staff and
Yeah, no,
unexpected.
and that process, we thought really consistent process on that, like, it's really important, everyone knows that it's, what it is, and we're having challenges both on space, both physical, both in classrooms, but also number of classrooms, okay, we're challenged on that.
Yeah.
So, so it's something we're really trying to address, but it's, that's.
Thank you.
Questions? Let's moving on to East Veterans.
Hi, everyone. I'm Trina Sotero. I'm the program leader at East Veterans.
I'm Dennis Lance, I'm the special education teacher in the coach program at East.
Okay, so just so you know, the coach program at East Veterans started with 2 programs. We had a lower and an upper, and what has shifted is we had an influx of preschoolers coming in, and so we had to create another classroom. Now we currently have 3 programs for the autism program. We call it the coach program. And with that, we have different disabilities within the program. We have students who have communication, social, behavioral, and adaptive domains. The students have individual behavior plans. Every one of them have them, and they're all followed by a BCBA who kind of oversees the behavior plans of each of those students. So the students, what is different about the program at East Vets versus at West Parish is our students have some more functional skills, right? So they can go into a classroom more so than students in the RISE program. So our students flex into regular ed. They can be there for a duration of time, and then they can come back out and get the services in their in the special ed program. Some of the students are sub-separate, so they are more than 80% of their day is in a sub-separate, but then we have other students who will do more of a check-in in the program. So it's very flexible and it's very individualized. So the life of a student at East Vets in, let's say, Dennis's class, you want to talk about what a student would look like in your class? Because I feel like it's very different from grade level and then from severity. So Dennis.
Yeah, that's a tricky one because like Trina was saying, we have a lot of levels even within one classroom. And so, if anybody were to look at my schedule, my schedule for a day consists of 2 rows, one for 2nd grade and one for 3rd grade. And then within those rows, we are moving kids in and out of gen ed based on what their ability is to be able to sustain in a gen ed environment. We are always trying to add more minutes to gen ed environments. That is a significant piece of the coach program over at East Vets. Our goal is to try to move them through the attainment of skills more into gen ed as their skills come on board. We have students who are very close to nonverbal, all the way to students who are hyperverbal. We have students who are very physical. We have students who are very anxious and afraid of a lot of things, and everywhere in between. Those individual behavior plans are very important for myself and my staff to follow because they guide us in what we can do with them in order to get them moving forward and pick up some more gen ed minutes as we can. As far as the scope of the program goes, we have intensive and individualized both whole class and small group education. Every single day, every student receives math and ELA throughout the day in various blocks. We focus on those 2 mostly because they are the ones that are going to get you into gen ed, I think, sooner. They're just the ones that are the heaviest subject matters or academic subjects rather. And so if we can get a student to be able to sustain in an ELA lesson and or a math lesson, we stand a much better chance of them being able to sustain with more peers around, being able to work in a small group in a gen ed class, stuff like that. A big part of that is teaching them skills that translate both in our little environment in my room and in a gen ed environment. And the way that we do that is through a positive reinforcement system, and it is ABA informed. You can see kind of up here on the board, this is myself over here, and then my RBT or Leah, and we are working in small groups. Leah is working one-to-one with a student who is significantly lower in the same subject that I'm teaching at a different table at a different part of the room. So that can give you an example of, and that's only second grade right there. This does not even show third grade doing the exact same thing at different parts of the day, working with different staff. Part of the way that we get these skills, we get the kids to focus on these skills is through our positive reinforcement system within the classroom. So down at the bottom here, you'll see a pretty sad picture of our stamp reinforcement system. We had a better one. It didn't make it into the slide, but
They gave it to me on the 11th hour.
that's true. But what those are, and you can see actually the student over here is a pretty clear picture. She's sitting with that stamp card. So as the students are showing pro-social behavior, pro-student behavior, they're able to look, act, and feel like a regular old student where you'd walk into a room and you wouldn't notice the difference. We reinforce for that all day, every day. And when I say all day, every day, I mean from the moment they walk in. We ask them to do things. I heard somebody else say, like, there's your cabinet, go put your jacket and backpack away. If they go do that in a good way and come to their desk like any student in a gen ed class would, they come to a desk. My staff will put stamps on their stamp card. Those will get them things in the classroom, like every, I'd say about hour. We have a free choice time with highly preferred activities, and they can earn that free choice time through getting enough stamps on their stamp card. And at the end of a day, we accumulate all of those and they can earn a prize box stamp. So it's a way to keep them focused and moving forward throughout every single day, all day, every single day. It takes a lot of staff and movement of staff to be able to do that because we take those into the gen ed environment as well. We don't want to highlight that system in the gen ed environment, so usually the teacher will keep them with them. So we're not putting these stamp cards on tables and stuff in the gen ed environment because we want them to be gen ed students in those moments. We work off of a flexible inclusion model. I think I sort of touched on this, but as they can, they do. Sometimes they'll come in on a day where they can't, even when they normally would. And so we have the supports in the classroom where we have a calm down place, and we work with a lot of people in my room, including the speech therapist, occupational therapist, counselors, physical therapists. We have those people helping us with the setup of our room. So if somebody needs to come back from gen ed, they know where they can go and what to do to regulate in order to go back to gen ed. We do have students that are full sub-separate also in my room, so they stay with me all day, every day. Wherever they go, staff goes with them. And this includes things like recess, lunch, specials, assemblies, anything like that. And then we work with all of the gen ed teachers in our building. I'm grades 2 and 3, so I work with the second grade and third grade staff to find times that are accessible. Like today, we went in for science for our third graders, and science is very hands-on and fun. And the general ed teacher allowed me to kind of modify the lesson to where it was accessible for our student, and she gave me this stuff ahead of time. So we get to work with them in that way. It's a really cool process, and my kids don't have to miss out on anything that other kids are doing. They get to do the same stuff, but their IEP and their behavior plan informs how we present that material.
Another part, and you should be aware that it does take all of us, we meet monthly as a team. We call them clinicals. Mike made us do them. We were kind of ruffled a little bit, but they ended up being very successful. So every Thursday, if everyone come, we meet and I'll meet with each program, each classroom teacher or program teacher and the clinical staff. So the BCBA is there, the OT, the PT, the speech and language, the psychologist, my principal comes and we talk about each one of those students and what is working and what isn't. It gives you an opportunity to kind of understand the kids more, get a perspective of like, oh, okay, so this month, this is what's going on. And then when we follow up a month later, oh, they don't have the problem on the bus that they were having a month ago. Because it gives us time to problem solve, things like that. So that is a designated time in our weekly, well, for me anyway, and all the other service providers, but for the teachers to come in as well. And to have that time to kind of update any information. This is instead of just saying, hey, in the hallway, you know, we know that we're going to be talking about that. So we can kind of keep things, you know, private and confidential at that point. So I do want to say that our students, they're in general ed classrooms and you would never know, right? So they're in during calendar math, a very successful time for most of the students. They're in during a phonics lesson or foundations. They have the whiteboards, they're writing, they're doing those things. Is it modified at times? Yes, but they're in there and they're part of it. And sometimes they're doing so well that the staff can take a step back, right? And let them be an independent student. And that's obviously the goal for our students is become an independent learner. We want them to be safe, we want them to be learning. And so as long as we can provide that, that's what we're up to.
Yeah, I think to kind of piggyback off what she's saying, and I heard somebody else say it too, we are always looking for least restrictive. We want to be able to challenge our students. We want our students to be independent. We don't want them to learn helplessness in our classrooms and in our programs. So as much as we can back off, we do back off, but we want to do it in a responsible way and in a meaningful way. Just because a student is at grade level in math does not necessarily mean that student can sustain a grade level math lesson in a gen ed environment. For a lot of reasons, I think I heard somebody say, like, if you go into a room and it's very noisy, if we have students who are noise averse, we're not going to learn that day. So we may get that lesson from the teacher and bring it back to our room, but it's that lesson and it's that same lesson, right? Because when they go back, we want them to be able to say, I got my work done, I'm keeping up with my group, we're good. There's one more thing I want to say. Oh, and I think another pretty crucial part of what we do is our communication with the parents, because we get them for 6 hours, parents have them for 18 hours. And so if we can help the parents employ some of the strategies that we do at home that allow them to be successful, they will come into school in a better way. And a way that we do that, one of the ways we do that is through our STAMP system. So if a parent calls me up or hits me up on Dojo and says, hey, so-and-so had a great morning, took his medication, he got dressed. I say that because this happened this morning. Got dressed and got right in the car to come to school. I meet that student at the door and I say, hey, I heard you had a great day. Let's go have breakfast. I think I owe you some stamps. Let's talk about it. So that we can get synergy at home too. Because we are building community members, you know. So.
Questions? Friends for anyone from the autism programs, pre-K through elementary?
I have a question about the different elementary school programs. So you were saying that the needs of the kids in the West Parish RISE program aren't the same as the Coach program. Do we, like, as far as the district goes, do we place students in West Parish depending on the needs in the program? Okay, yeah.
Based on the profile.
That's what I meant by specialization of
Not that
programs.
because they're in West Gloucester.
No.
Okay, that's
what I mean by specialized of programs. It would be a redundancy and ineffective and inefficient if that was done previously. So we had to specialize so that we have vertical alignment and horizontal alignment with our program.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
Two things. One, I'm assuming that, that to get more time in the general ed.
Yep.
Is that two track? I mean, there's the learning part of it, but there's also, kind of sensitive to
behavioral
the
part.
language, but the behavioral part
Yeah.
as well. They're not meeting both of those, then
Yes.
we're not sending them up.
Yeah,
Sending them over.
I think in my experience, we find it much more challenging to get the behaviors to come on board first because there are just habits. We have some really awesome teachers who are able to work as teachers and other service providers, like we were talking about speech, OT and all those, who are very skilled at being able to help the kids access and start to pick up pace with the curriculum. But if their behaviors aren't online, they won't even make it to the table. So we are in my classroom definitely are a behavior first approach. We want to make sure that they are safe and as happy as they can be, but students ready to learn that look like any other student ready to learn. Not necessarily robots or, you are fully compliant, but we want their personalities to show without all the extra stuff.
And I think you and I might have also gone into Dennis's class. And
I do
I think
remember, yeah.
in the middle of the class, I think a bunch of kids just left to go to the general ed.
Yeah.
So, well, superintendent's 3 for 3. I mean, there's been 3 presentations and they've all been outstanding. What tremendous work. Not me.
The staff.
The staff's 3 for 3. The staff's 3 for 3, right? Let's not give him the credit.
I have a question. How do you determine the standard to move the child forward into a different grade level? I mean, we know how we do it in gen ed. Is it the same in these programs, both rise and code programs?
Like whether they go from second grade to third
To
grade?
third and then third to fourth and then off to Amelia, which I'm sure we're gonna hear about next. Like how are those are the standards the same?
So it's through team, I can help with this. So
Yeah.
it's through team process, right?
Okay.
So it's special ed's job is to provide modifications, adaptations for accessing their readiness points.
Yeah.
And grow, right? So that's a range where some kids that might be have those skills commensurate with second, third grade, fourth grade, what have you. But there also could be youngsters that aren't, but it would still progress through. And that would mean that we have to provide additional services.
So a fifth grader may not necessarily be a true fifth grader. They may need fourth or third grade supports to be in that class.
Yep, so it might be,
Okay.
yeah.
Sort of.
You change like the way special education works is like you get the curriculum at that grade level and you change it.
Adapting and
It's-
modifying.
Make it,
A high level.
And teaching them.
yes, so that way they can
Yeah.
access it, so you lower your standards for them to access.
Okay.
And the focus is growth.
Yeah,
That makes
So
sense.
oftentimes we'll follow the standard we'll follow the standard backwards
Right.
to where the student can access it, and then we'll work from there to move them.
like for example, if a fifth grade is adding and subtracting fractions, right?
Yeah.
Our students would be working on fractions.
Okay.
At like a lower level, but still doing the same type of instruction, but just at a lower level. If that makes sense.
Like we've been saying, beyond impressed with hearing what we have here in our school. It's not talked about enough because there's a lot of good work going under the roofs. And it's thanks to you. And I commend you all for the work you're doing. Very impressive.
Thanks.
Thank you, folks. We'll let these go. Thank you, Patty.
Thank you.
Dennis. Yeah, and so they'll introduce the next folks. Get them going. Thank you. Chairs. Nice to meet you.
The therapeutic programs are at your team. And introduce yourselves and go through your programs.
I'm Brooke Gray, I'm the program leader at Beaman. Our therapeutic program also has the name coach, and it actually mirrors the East Vets program very closely. However, our students have emotional disabilities. So the focus on skill building in that program is on coping strategies and self-regulation strategies. In order to build student self-esteem and help them with their academic goals. Same as the coach program in SPATs, the children also flex in and out at varying degrees. Some more than others. We have some students that remain in the program all day and some that will go in just for music. Not music, just for specials and lunch, some that will just pop in for science and social studies. Right now, every student has a therapeutic intervention plan. They also receive counseling. Our school psychologist is part of that program. And staff is trained in de-escalation techniques as well as crisis management. And then we also hold a weekly consult with the program teachers so that we can get to know the students, what's working, what's not working, and so on and so forth.
I'm Jolie Gianotti, I'm the principal at Beeman. Just to talk a little bit about our student profiles. So the students in our classrooms, we have 2 classrooms at Beeman. We call it the lower and upper program. So lower services students in kindergarten through 2nd grade. In that program right now, we have 3 students. They happen to just all be in kindergarten. And then we have 5 students in our 3 through 5 or upper program. And those students have a variety of backgrounds. Some of them are developmental delays, health, social emotional disorders that we're servicing. The staff that is involved in servicing these students, we have 1 RBT that splits her time between the 2 programs, and 1 paraprofessional that splits her time between the 2 programs. We are searching for a secondary paraprofessional. We do have a posting out. It's been out for a little while. I have high hopes for the job there tomorrow. We have quickly learned that the program does need a little bit more than what we had initially set out. And really a lot of that has to do with, we got more students than we had planned on. We had planned to grow it much slower, but when students move in and their IEPs dictate that they need these type of services, then we've been lucky enough to at least have this in place to be able to respond. So growing pains, but we hope to get there. We do have 1 student in the upper program that also came with a 1-to-1 paraprofessional. So he entered the program with that position. Our school psychologist is very closely aligned with the program, so she provides direct services in the classroom, doing some social emotional learning and skill building, but she also does individual counseling for students and then helps our staff manage those therapeutic plans that Brooke mentioned. Which are very similar to the behavior plans that you heard a lot about at the East Veteran School. So just working through proactively how to manage students' days. So we look at what are the antecedents to their behaviors, what can we set up for them so that they can be successful, and sort of plan for that ahead of time so that we're not responding to a crisis, but we're planning to avoid one. That can be anything from different kinds of break schedules to learning about preferred incentives for children and how to be able to help motivate them, both in the general ed classroom as well as in a separate classroom. As Brooke mentioned, we have students who remain in the program all day long. We have 2 special education teachers that are there to provide the services and education that they need. And then anything in between. We have some students that flex in only for more social aspects of the day. We try to get them out to recess with their general ed peers, to lunch, and to their specialists, art, music, and PE. But then we have other students that are ready for more of the academic challenges that are in the classroom. And so they're flexing in. In the upper program, I have 1 student that pretty much is just about full-time flexed in and just does check-ins with the program. At the lower program, I have 1 kindergartner that is spending probably 60% of his day in the gen ed classroom and is really primed and ready to increase that, so that we suspect that that will be pretty much full-time by the end of the year. And then we have students, that really haven't had an opportunity yet to come out and experience the general ed classroom because they just haven't demonstrated that they're ready for that yet, but we'll continue to work with them. We have the benefit of a BCBA that comes to consult with us once a week and she does go to our weekly meetings. We have a weekly staff meeting with coach program staffing so that everybody can be on the same page, much like East Veterans described to you, just really going through student by student, what's working, what's not working, what has changed, feedback from the general education teachers as to how it's going for those students that are able to flex in. Our speech pathologist and our occupational therapist as well work with our students in those classrooms. So very, very similar to all that you've heard of. I think the big difference is just kind of what is the diagnosis that children have and what is their background that brings them to needing this kind of program. And that's the distinction between whether you be off to vets or to Beeman. A typical day for the students is a wide variety, much like you had heard already, sort of depending on where you are in that continuum of being able to access general education. So you might start your day in the therapeutic classroom while others are able to go right to the general ed classroom and then do a check-in a little bit later. So it kind of just depends on where a student is at in that process. Most of our students do a general soft start or a check-in with the staff in the programs before they go out, just to kind of do a temperature check, much like what was already described. There can be kiddos that normally would spend most of their day in a general education classroom, but today it was a tough day. It was a tough bus ride in. Maybe something went on in the morning that was particularly stressful. And so our staff really uses that temperature check to make sure that if we're going to put them in a general education setting, that they're going to be successful there. And so that can be a day by day thing. It's not just, either or. We could start one way or the other and realize very quickly that we're able to transition either out or we need to pull it back and be in just, based on the kind of feedback that we're getting. And we have staff always sort of taking that feedback and looking for what the student is telling us that they need the time. So we do strive to make sure that all of our students have access to their peers through recess, through lunchtime, through their specialists at bare minimum, and then any other opportunities that we can provide for them to be with their peers and sort of learn from peer models and mimic the behaviors that are desirable.
So the thing I'd add to that.
No, I can wait.
So it's what makes it therapeutic is that it's the verbal mediation that goes on. So as kids and children in the program, as they demonstrate a level of skill of identifying feelings, knowing how to respond in a positive way given those feelings, and some of that could be self-advocacy. So it could be a whole range of motor breaks, a whole range of different things that could be at play here. The point is that when they're in the sub-separate and they have developed the skills to identify the feelings and know what to do about it, that's when we start to flex in the general ed. And then the process part of that, where it's verbally mediated, is that there's the discussion, reminder, here's how you know your feelings. Here's your repertoire of things that you're gonna do if you feel those things. And they flex in for an arbitrary amount of time, say 10 minutes. So have the pre-conversation, flex in for 10 minutes. Then after 10 minutes, it's time to go back out. How'd it go? How did you feel? Did you use it? What strategies did you use? And to deal with those kinds of feelings? Maybe some, maybe none. We flex it up to 12 minutes perhaps, arbitrary number, right? And that's the idea of this going in a therapeutic way. It's exposure. It can't just be a destination. Special education is not a destination. It's a value-added service. And I think you heard from all of our programs thus far, and here's more, that every one of them has talked about general ed happening. Right? That's what we have in common here, right? It's that push for inclusion once appropriate. Any questions for Beeman?
I just have a quick question, it's more about process. So understanding, like I know the ramifications of an IEP. I've never heard the therapeutic intervention plan. So is that part of the IEP? Is that separate? Are all students on IEPs that have the therapeutic intervention plan?
So
Just trying to understand.
yeah, so an IEP is an individualized educational program therapeutic intervention plan is an option. It's my twist to the term. So it's a behavioral intervention plan that's born out of IDA 04 after a functional behavioral assessment mandated.
And you grew up behaving us earlier tonight.
Yeah, I heard the other one
Assessment.
earlier, so I'm just trying to connect the
Yeah,
dots.
good.
So as a result of that, you behavioral intervention plan, that's the actuated plan that gives the roadmap in essence for it. So what I call therapeutic plan switches the lens. It's not just behavioral. Kids aren't doing this because they want to be bad kids or making bad decisions because they want to be bad. It's because they don't have a skill set. So that switches the lens and looking at it, it becomes therapeutic in that way. So it's exposure, discussion, therapeutic, and learning over time. So that's in essence a roadmap. But the key part to that is it gives the roadmap for the inclusion staff to know how to work with a child that might be coming in from a district program, right? Because it can't just all be district staff, but we're not a staff. So that's why we have to build our inclusion program and take some of this on in a way. And they need support when we have consultation. And part of that consultation is this living document that is in therapeutic intervention.
But is that part of the, that's the
Yeah, so
IEP, right?
it's not part. So
It's
you
not.
So there is
It's like an additional tool.
It's
an
a
additional tool
that
because the
feeds
IEP
into
needs a
it.
signature. You don't need a signature. You want
Okay.
that to be flexible.
I'm just trying to figure out if there's legal ramifications
Living
to
document.
all this, right? But
Yeah,
it's not.
living document, yeah. Because otherwise, like, we have weekly meetings to talk about what's working. what isn't.
Right, well, that's what I'm trying to understand,
Yeah.
the commitment
Right.
to all this, right? And
It's kind of like a game.
the challenge.
Yeah,
That makes sense.
Yeah.
Thank you.
So. So I have some specific questions to the Beaman model, because I'm hearing some things that are different than East Bath or West Parish. Firstly, just, and again, some of you know, I know that building better. Like, it's one floor, it's one hallway, right? So when you're having students, sub-separate, I mean, how does that work in practice? Because there isn't really room for people, they're in a classroom, but everybody's together when they're moving around in that building. And since these are behavioral issues, or some are, I'm wondering just how that works in practice.
Say more, because I'm not sure what you're asking.
Well, it's tight space.
Okay.
It's really tight.
Is meaning the classroom itself or the
No,
whole
meaning
school?
the building. And so-
Beaman itself.
Beaman
One
itself.
hallway, you have two programs that are there. You could have some explosive outbursts.
Is that what you
needs.
mean?
Yes.
Okay, so, first of all, within the two therapeutic classrooms, there are some partitions, so it allows for some quiet spaces and spaces for different things to go on. Whether that's somebody that's pushing in to work with an individual child or a small group of children, or, different grade level lessons as were described. So those classrooms are divided differently than a traditional classroom in terms of having more flexible spacing for education. So that's what's happening in the classroom. Now, when we're talking about some of the more explosive behaviors that need additional containment beyond what the traditional classroom can provide, we do have a resource room, and in that resource room, there is a timeout space if that's needed, if they're physically aggressive behaviors. That is stationed right across the hall from those two classrooms, so that if a student is transitioning during a really difficult period, it's very minimal to the rest of the school, both listening to it and visually, because they're escorted pretty quickly across the hallway, and then that room is pretty well removed from other classrooms. There's bathrooms and all kinds of things between. It doesn't share a wall with any other classroom. So the sound doesn't travel as much. I'm not gonna say at all, but as much. And we did that purposefully. That's not where it was located last year. And so knowing that we were going to build this type of programming and have more of these type of students with this kind of a profile in our school, we made sure that that was a really close-knit area. It also is conveniently located to the counseling office, to our sensory walk that we have in the school, because that's a resource that many of our students use. So all of their immediate resources that they would typically use very often are in very close proximity. So there's not a lot of traveling all over the school.
And I do hear, I could be wrong, from other programs, that sort of main staff for the school were being brought just to be used in much of their time for this program. So here I'm talking about the school psychologist. Beaman has one school psychologist, as I understand.
Yes.
And so that person has an entire school. And a lot of their time, if they're providing services to both classrooms, and you described what they were doing, that's a lot of the time of a staff member.
So Beeman has, 3 counselors. One is a school psychologist, the other 2 are school adjustment counselors, which is one more than most of my cohorts have. So we have a little bit more in terms of resources for counseling at Beeman, which I'm very thankful for. And the way that they divvy up their schedules changes year to year, and it's very much related to the demands of the school. So in past, school psychologists took on testing, obviously, because that, makes the most sense with her expertise and her background. So she does our educational assessments or components of it that are necessary when a child is going through an evaluation process to determine their needs in special education. Last year, a part of her job was to take on counseling that was very specific to students that had it on their IEP, because there's 2 kinds of counseling. Some kids just need that school counselor check-in kind of stuff. It might be born out of this therapeutic plan that we're talking about. It might be something out of a 504, but then there's students that have it literally as part of their disability and the need in their IEP. And so really, the only thing that's shifted for the school psychologist, she's still doing that educational testing for us. So instead of that core group of kids that had it on their IEP, she's shrunk that down to the kids in the program, which, by the way, it's on their IEP because it's part of one of the requisites to get into the program. And then some of the other students that aren't part of this program but still need that on their IEP are seeing the other counselors instead. So we haven't really removed her entirely as a resource to the school. There's still half of her job is a resource to our school in terms of the testing.
So in addition to that, I can say, so you've heard from every program, as Trina said, so we have clinical meetings, right? So she is a key part to our clinical meetings. Part of the reason why we have clinical meetings is to do a study of our kids, but also it's about building capacity throughout the building. It just can't be the program. Special education is not a destination, just can't be the program. So building capacity through those clinical meetings is building up therapeutic intervention plans, writing consultation to our professionals that aren't in the program, special education co-teachers that aren't in the program, general education teachers who are responsible for implementing accommodations. So there are a range of staff members that benefit from this capacity building strategy. So it just isn't the school psychologist that's showing up as the first responder all the time.
So
And that's built over time.
Yeah.
right, so I'm just gonna lay out something. So I am at that school sometimes, and I recently was there in the morning and saw at least three staff members outside with a student and their parent, I believe. I don't know who the student was. My sense, though, was that the student was having a hard time going into the building and needed support, and the parent needed support. And I was struck by how many staff members were outside the building with one student, while obviously you have hundreds of students inside. So I'm not, where am I going with this?
Yeah.
There's a lot of staff going to 8 children in this building.
Well, they need, it's the support staff.
It's not, it's some of this is staff for the entire school.
But we're
So-
talking about inclusion, getting all staff involved in all children. I thought that was the goal that we're working.
I see what Laura's saying. So, I mean, as I acknowledged early on in my presentation tonight, we're a new program, we're a growing program. One of the things we learned is that we needed to staff it differently. Mike has been responsive with that. There's a posting out, unfortunately, through no fault of anyone's, we have not been able to get somebody, and we're still trying to do that. And I think that as we learn and grow, that we will be able to build a more supportive level of staff that won't pull resources from other areas. But when you see things such as you're describing, which is a crisis, then
Right,
it's all hands on deck and we
Yeah.
go. Just like we would for
Right.
any
Right.
student.
No, and I get
And actually, the student that you saw wasn't even, he wasn't a program.
Yeah, I don't know.
Yep.
I mean.
I know what you
I was
saw.
out there.
Oh, okay,
Yeah.
so, yeah, I just was struck, I'd seen it before.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
But that's important, you said, but it
Yeah.
wasn't one of the students.
It wasn't.
Yeah.
Right. No, that's interesting. I
Yeah.
didn't know who it was.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
thank you.
Yeah,
for sharing.
that was an elopement in action,
Yeah.
Laura, and when you're
Yeah.
eloping, meaning you're leaving the campus, We are all running after you because we don't want that to
Hands on
happen.
deck.
Yeah, no, I just, it was just
I
a
mean,
moment.
if,
that I-
if the custodian was in your way, I would be telling him to stop that meeting because I don't want him
Okay,
getting to
so-
Cherry Street.
Thank you. Thank you for that explanation. I appreciate it.
Just a quick question, for any of you. I noticed the other programs, RISE program, Coach program, this one we're calling the
Therapeutic program, yeah.
Have we given any thought to given it a name or?
We also call ours the coach right now.
Oh, you
Yeah,
do?
I mean,
Okay,
no,
sorry.
it could probably be fancier with our names, but.
I like to have the staff, so it's ownership, as they do this, one of the components to it as well.
It's the program to be named.
TV, formerly known as.
Which is better than program to shop.
That's a quick question. Is CBCA, the behavioral analysis.
Yes.
Yeah.
That you have, on one day a week.
Yeah.
Is that a district position or is that?
Yes.
Yeah.
It is.
Yeah.
And is that, available to all the elementary?
We actually share with West Parish. They have more programming, so she spends more.
Okay,
time.
yeah, okay. We have one of those, is that right?
No, three,
Oh, three.
three in contract.
Total of 4. You are staff members.
Okay.
Yeah, a few years ago, we had 1.8.
Wow. That's progress, all right.
I have a question in terms of different programs, different schools. Are families challenged by having kids in multiple schools? Is everybody navigating it okay? I haven't heard any complaints from anywhere.
I hadn't heard. I know that can be a challenge with arrival and dismissal times.
Yeah.
I haven't heard any of that. Sometimes transportation can be challenging because moving parts unintended. Right, so, but I haven't heard that.
Sometimes families will put in for school choice, and if we can accommodate that, we do, so to eliminate that burden. We can't promise it because it's based on space, but they certainly have the opportunity to apply.
And I think I was right, anyone who's in the district program has access to transportation. We don't require, your district program, we don't require you, the family, to get them to school.
You don't with these programs?
No, right?
We pick them up.
No, they pick them up. That's part of the.
It's an option for parents to do. It's a partnership. You have to say it's a partnership. Parents can, and there's a reimbursement portion of
I
that.
was gonna say, I think I signed warrants for paid
Yeah,
parents,
yeah.
right? That's what I thought.
So that could be for our district too, but it could be district as well. So, but yes, it's a partnership, so we have options. All right, we're gonna move on to therapeutic program at O'Malley Middle School.
Hi, how's it going? I'm Leanne Bradley. I'm the special ed coordinator at O'Malley.
I'm Jude Seminar, I'm one of the therapeutic teachers.
So yeah, we're gonna go a little in depth with our program. So the purpose of our program is to provide safe, predictable therapeutic setting. It's a bit of a bridge from the Beeman program. We want our students in our program to build coping strategies, improve emotional awareness, and develop skills so they can access their academic instruction at the appropriate level. One of the great things about this program is the students' needs are individualized. The program allows for small group practice of the skill before generalizing the skill in the gen ed setting. The program is flexible, so it depends on the student's schedule and their schedule depends on their needs. So some students spend the majority of the day in the therapeutic program, completing their academic work, embedding social emotional learning and positive behavior interventions. Other students attend their gen ed classes for the most part, and they kind of use the therapeutic as like a home base. They get some social emotional support there, and they can utilize it for breaks as needed throughout the day. The students that attend the gen ed, that when they attend gen ed classes, they typically have the therapeutic intervention plan that's created in collaboration with the teachers, the counselors, and at the middle school level, and they probably do it at the elementary too, but at the middle school level, we really want the student voice to be heard, so the students are a big part of creating that plan. The plans kind of follow them to their gen ed class, so and the support might be from the therapeutic program, it might be support from the grade level liaisons, that inclusion support that we've talked a lot about. It might be gen ed teachers that are the ones kind of utilizing that plan. So we kind of keep the plans clear and concise and really like focusing on what the needs of the students are. We use kind of the term of like when then. So when the student does X, then you should do this, or when the student is having a hard time with this, then you could do that. So just to keep it we like the plans to be similar in how they're created, but obviously individualized for each student. So the students in this program have significant challenges in their emotional regulation. They might have social skill deficits. They might have trouble with perspective taking, conflict resolution, and peer interactions. Similar to what East Vets was saying, a lot of these kids are academically right on grade level, but it's that regulation piece that's really a challenge for them. So working with the staff in the program to help them to regulate, work on that in the program. So then when they go to their gen ed classes, they are regulated, they have those skills. We have sort of a couple different levels. Some kids might be working on, like Dr. Jarvis was saying, like they might have a plan for 15 minutes of class. So they might go to each class for 15 minutes, they might get instruction, and then they come back and do their work in the program. And then, we have our clinical meetings bi-weekly, and we might say, oh, this student, they've been doing great with their 15 minutes, but let's make it 20. Or the students will need some more work. Let's keep it at 15 for now, for a few more weeks, kind of, keep an eye on it, keep taking that data. In middle school, the students, they want to be in classes with their peers. They request to go more to their gen ed classes. So, and we really have them on board of like, okay, if this is what you want to do, then, you need to do X, Y, and Z to be able to be in there. And so that's that kind of buy-in for them, like just being with their peers is important to them. So yeah, the students, their difficulty accessing the gen ed setting independently, a lot of times, like I said, it's more due to their like social emotional needs. I would say most of the students in the program are at grade level. Some have other needs. Some students flex between a couple of programs. So we have a couple of students who are in the language-based program and the therapeutic program. So they get their small group ELA instruction from another set of special ed teachers. And then they utilize the therapeutic program for those social emotional needs. We have a lot of students that like the Beeman staff was talking about, like it's day to day. So they come in, they might have had a rough weekend. A lot of these kids have difficult home lives and, they have experienced trauma and they have a lot of stuff that's going on outside of school. So we really focus on keeping their setting in school like their safe place and making it comfortable for them, which our staff has done a really good job of doing that with them this year. Currently there's 9 students across 3 grade levels, so it's really challenging. But between those 9 students, a couple might be going, fully to their math class, and then they're, in small group instruction for social studies and science and ELA. Some are doing the 15 minutes. Some are going to most of their gen ed classes and then coming back as touch points. So it's really like a lot of kind of
there's a lot of moving parts.
Yeah, a lot of moving parts. There's 2 classrooms, so that allows them to have, an academic setting. So if they're doing like, social studies in one room, they might be doing like social emotional learning or therapeutic activities in the other room. It might be that it's just 2 different grade levels working on different activities in the different classrooms. But it does kind of, this one might be a group of kids that are a little bit louder and rambunctious, and these group of kids need quiet space to do their work. So it allows that flexibility. There's 2 lead teachers, Jude and Stephanie, and then 2 ESPs that are paraprofessionals that are part of the program. They also work with, we have 2 school adjustment counselors that have their own caseloads within the program. We work closely with the school psychologists, and then some students have BCBA support in the program. Some students, like I mentioned, access other special education services like reading instruction, speech and language. And some of them, like I said, flex between, it's really just language based and therapeutic, that they might flex between 2 different programs in the building.
I have a question.
Yeah.
So when it's is in a regular classroom setting, do they also have some staff member from your program with them? Or are they independent enough at that point?
Most of our kids are in classes that are either supported by our staff or the grade level. So each grade level has its own special ed liaison and paraprofessional, so they have supported classes. So the way we craft their schedule is for them to be placed in classes that are supported. And then that therapeutic intervention plan is provided to everybody, so they know. So the way, just to touch on the way our plans are drawn up is, you know, it focuses on, it's not necessarily like a challenging behavior. It might not be that. It might be something like inability to access the class or whatever. So like we have like a target and then we have a replacement. So like we want someone, for instance, to increase their ability to be in class for, you know, direct instruction, let's say 15 minutes, we want to build that up to half hour or whatever. So our plan has like that behavior and then the skills that might impact that, and then like proactive strategies. So everybody's provided that. So if they go into a classroom with the general education paraprofessional, that person has that essential blueprint for how to work with that individual student. If that clarifies it.
It does. I just, through conversation, you know, through things that have been said at different points in the past couple of years, is this idea that kids should be taking that class if they're not behaving, having a difficult time. And I'm wondering who makes that, who's there observing, and who's either proactively supporting the child to go out, or is a teacher saying, please come take this child? I mean, how does that,
I mean,
how does that work?
From our program vantage point, we typically have like a protocol for when, if there is a behavior, right? Like I wouldn't suggest removing a kid whose head's down because their head might be down and they might still be listening, but a kid who's derailing a classroom for whatever reason, like we have that's like our, on the plan is our reinforcement section. So it's usually like, you know, a simple one would be address the class to what the expectation is and then address that person. And if that person isn't responding to that, then they have to come out. And it might be, they come out for 15 minutes and process it and they just need a regulation break, or it might be, it rose to the level that we can't have you in the room because you become unmanageable. And that's when we would start, you know, we would use, you know, help them regulate.
What we're really trying to move away from is kids in a class that they're in a class for amount of time where they're less likely to be successful. Okay, rather than as you're describing, make sure they're ready to go to a classroom for a defined amount of time, to say, or to a specific area, and they're more likely to be successful. You know, what we fell into too much in the past, and this is very common in schools, is you put kids who aren't ready to be there in a class. They have issues, they have challenges, you pull them out. And then you're doing this back and forth, as opposed to helping them get ready to be in the class, but you know, don't go there yet. And these guys and their staff help them be ready to be in their class. When they go for a time, have success, that's building positive success, you know. So that's something that we're really trying to flip literally.
Proactive, not reactive.
That's right. Yeah, exactly right. We collect data on the kids that are in our room, like we'll collect behavioral data, and then the kids that go into class will collect, you know, even something as simple as like how much time could they sustain in class over, let's say, the week. Right now we have an average, so the next goal would be to increase that time, and if it's not working, we can always clutch that back. And part of it's like we have kids that have very intact skills and just can't access it for whatever reason. Maybe there's something outside of school, maybe they can regulate in certain situations, but like they're having a you know, an outside of school difficulty and they just can't access their regulation skills. That's when, you know, we can do more in-depth, like direct teaching with them to, you know, provide them that toolbox.
Thank you.
And our focal point with that, to assist with this, not replace, but assist with this, focal point is that dynamic tension of increasing the capacity with our infrastructure, our inclusion program, our inclusion services, the special education co-teacher, our professionals, provision them with PD, provision them with those therapeutic intervention plans so they know the roadmap and on how to reach and teach kids to help them generalize skills, right? They're not going to be counseling them in class there, but they can help and support intervene is a better word than help, and the teaching, not helping. And help, and intervene and generalize those skills, because we can't have services in isolation and expect generalization just to happen. We're preparing for individuals to be independent.
So this may be less a question for you guys and more a question for you or for Titus. But last year with some of the issues at O'Malley, part of what was explained at parent meetings and other things was that because we had lacked this program, there was nowhere for students to go who needed help with regulation and certain things got out of hand. So I'm wondering if having this program intact, and it sounds like you're doing amazing work, if that's helping sort of regulate the sort of behaviors at the school more generally, like if this is helping to sort of, I mean, that was a specific year also, but is this having a place for students to be learning these skills and regulating, is that now helping the general school population so that this isn't, do you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So anecdotally, I think you can.
Yeah.
Jude Lanner.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yes.
So I was in a different role last year and there was in fact a place for regulation for, a broader scope of the school. Like last year was this is my ninth year at O'Malley. Last year was the 100-year storm
Yeah.
of, it was just,
Yeah, the high school one.
yeah. It was just the dynamic of that cohort of kids was a difficult group.
Right.
And if just to touch back on some of the data I had collected in the past few years, there was a downward trend in problem behavior in the building.
Maybe things were getting better.
Right,
Better,
right.
yeah.
If you removed that cohort.
Right.
So there was that, I think if there was a more like a solid program at the time, because a lot of those kids were special education students and they were kids that had emotional disabilities, I think the tone of the building would have been different, hence this.
And a large investment of what we did is to support that program. We added another teacher. We moved Jude into the program and really formalized it a little, strengthened it.
And to speak to some of the work that the staff in this program has been doing, I wasn't here last year, but I've heard of the difficulties of the students. And although some of those students are not at the school anymore, some of the students who are still at the school that were here last year, when we started the school year, it was like, these kids are going to need full separate. They're not gonna be able to be in the gen ed. Last year they were blowing up, they were eloping, they were leaving the building. And those kids are some of the kids that are going to their gen ed classes for, most of the time. And that definitely speaks to the work that they're doing. They're kind of setting these kids up, like providing them the space and the skills and just the support and kind of like that feeling of like safety and knowing that there are people in the building and a place in the building that they can go if they need to. And it kind of just builds that confidence for those kids. There are a few different kids that it was like, over the summer when I was kind of onboarding, it was like, oh yeah, these kids are going to be, a heavy lift and they're going to need a lot of support. And these are the kids who are very successful in their gen ed classes right now. Yeah, it's really.
I think it's an incentive too, like it incentivizes middle school kids to be with their peers. So like to want to go into class as essentially a reward, like that's their goal. And we do a lot of stuff with like goal setting and reflection. We spend a lot of time doing that. So each week at the end of the week, we set goals, we reflect on the goals, whether we met them or not. And it's not like a judgment. You don't meet your goal, we'll just continue that. We'll keep working on it. So we do a lot of that every week. So it's something that's become like a common language in our room. And it's something we can refer back to. And this group of kids has been, they've been able to like reflect, they've been able to like monitor it. We don't have to be like, remember your goal. They know what it is and they've got that drive. So, I'm impressed with the progress that they're making.
That's fantastic news.
I happened to be in their classroom on a Friday afternoon when they were doing the goal reflection and it was, I kind of didn't have a ton of time in my day and I said, I'm gonna carve out some time to go sit with their program for a little bit. And I was so glad that I did because all the kids across 3 grade levels were getting their goal reflection sheets. Stephanie, the other teacher, was passing out, oh, this was your goal last week. So write down if you met it this week and then write your goal for next week.
the students were helping each other, like, you know, if the kid said, I don't know, another student was like, let me help you with your goal. They all were excited, you know, like, Mr. Scott, look, I did meet my goal. And then as sort of like an end of the day activity, they all went outside and played football together. And it was just so sweet to see them working together. You know, and these are kids who, you know, in the past out at recess, like that might have been a fight when they're playing football, or students who, you know, we have students who come back from a separate setting and they're, you know, successful in that small group. And that's, you know, they're not just outside playing football, they're working on those skills so that when it is recess, then they can play football without as much support. So
We have the luxuries and time that we can do more like low stake stuff, so like, I don't, like, my philosophy is not to send someone into a situation that's may dysregulate them, so I might as well, like, we have a controlled setting in our room where, like, if they're playing a card game, right, like, we have, like, I have a Go Fish competition going on with one of the kids now, and he's not allowed to, like, you know, talk about non sequiturs during it, and it's practicing like turn taking, it's practicing social interaction, it's practicing, like, he can't whine if he doesn't get a point, right? And that's a low stakes setting, so when he goes into the general ed class and he has something that might be a disappointment or frustrating, it's building his tolerance for that. So we have the luxury of having, because we do have kids, we have 9 kids, we have kids that are in there all day long. It's a long day to just grind academics, so we can do short bursts of academics and then move on to, you know, more of the social emotional coaching.
Amazing. Really important.
I just wanted to say thank you all for the presentation, and I have to apologize because I threw a lump down.
We'll all
pay
choose.
attention. Hopefully there's not a group of teachers out there to get me back into school, but thank you all.
We're gonna make our way to high school.
Right. I'm Megan Baldessano. I am the coordinator of special ed at the high school.
Just want to give an introduction here.
Sure.
So this is the granddaddy of them all. We're the grandparent of them all. And has been around the longest of any of our therapy programs by a lot. And so this is a well-established and well-orchestrated. Great people. So I feel that way about a lot of our folks. Just want to acknowledge Hank, who's been here for quite some time and has really worked so hard on all you guys do. So
I was actually the math teacher of the program as my previous role. So I was in that for 11 years before this.
I'm Rebecca Carvelis, and I'm the English teacher in the Anchor program.
Dill, and I'm the math teacher.
No improvement.
Yeah, been doing improvement.
Oh, not part of the high school program. Oh, no, something else. Okay.
So, like Ben said, we've been around a long time, but at the same time, one of the great things about the Anchor program is that we're constantly collaborating and changing based on the needs of our students that we see. We have 4 grades. We teach kids from 9th to 12th grade. We have 4 teachers. Each of us are special ed teachers that specialize in a subject. So like I said, I'm English, math, we have a history and a science as well. We have 3 paras that travel in the program. They're not set to a classroom, they kind of rotate. So students typically get the academics with us. We all have an academic support as well if we get. And then we've added a few electives as well. I teach a health class, and the history teacher teaches a tech art and inquiry class as well. So they can get classes for credits for electives as well. Students typically go outside of the program for electives, but we have paras that go with them. And as they travel through the day, our classrooms are right close together in the middle of the first floor suite down here. And also, they travel kind of as a class for the most part for their academics. Like if you're in the 9th grade cohort, you go to your 4 academic classes with that 9th grade cohort. The students that we see are typically emotional disabilities. They have sometimes attendance issues, sometimes behavior issues, and usually limited academic success previous to coming to see us. And our mission really is to kind of give them a community within this big building that they feel safe. We focus on relationship building. We think that's really important so that we can hold the students accountable and we can, really push them to be academically successful. As Or is that stuff?
The classrooms are all right in a row, so if they travel together as a cohort, but the classrooms are like 1203, 1205, 1207, 1209. So the classrooms are all right next to each other, and the adjustment counselor is right there, the nurse is right there, the bathrooms are all right there. So it's really centralized, and we try to limit the transitions, so that was like a big thing. So coming to a new school or having 7 different classes, 7 different teachers, we limit those transitions, so everything's kind of centralized for them, with the exception of the electives.
And if I'm the English teacher for them freshman year, I'm gonna be the English teacher for them all 4 years. So that limits, that actually helps me to know the students and what they're capable of, and I can really tailor the curriculum to them and their needs, and then it helps them for next year. They know exactly kind of like what to expect in an English class with Ms. K. The other thing is that we have classroom management styles that we have across all 4 classrooms that we kind of keep, so that it's not like everyone's running their classroom differently, and then there's that transition piece as well. The expectations are the same. We have a positive behavior intervention program where we give tickets daily for each class that the students can earn. We also have Ms. Alves is the dedicated dean of students or vice principal for our students. So all behaviors are across the board like the same, because she deals with all behavior issues. We have because it's a therapeutic program, the pieces of it that are therapeutic is we have an adjustment counselor that's dedicated just to anchor students. She meets with each of the students individually, and we run groups weekly with the adjustment counselor.
Students are with us for their academics, but at every IEP meeting every year, we're talking about moving out of the program for academics or electives as the kid is ready. So we have some seniors that are taking classes, an English class outside of Anchor. So the goal is inclusion, and we do that on an individual basis after annual review days.
And I know that we heard at the middle school that a lot of the students want to be socially like with their peers. We see the opposite of that. They do not want to be. The anchor program, we have a lot of students that don't want to be in the general curriculum.
If they have come from O'Malley and having wanted to be in, and then the high school, they get a little less confident about it.
It's way bigger.
Yeah, it's a very big school. There's a lot of anxiety. There's a lot of like, I want to be away from the rest.
But there also wasn't a program at the school.
We've also built this worth of pride of being in that program. Like kids are proud to be in the anchor program.
As you
The
can
last
see,
slide, they
I
were
We started
at graduation.
2 years ago, we started making our own sashes because the students felt like accomplished. You know, they've been with us for 4 years. They graduated, and many felt that was not going to be on there, like that they weren't going to get there. So we started making sashes for the kids. And you know, originally we thought that they might not want to wear them, and they all wear them with pride.
Particularly like you guys have built, you and the students work really led by all of you and your colleagues, just to create a sense of community in the anchor program. So
We do Monday morning meetings as a program, so all 4 grades are together on Monday morning just to update them on things that are happening in the school. We also do a lot of activities together. I think on the next side it says Paloozas, that's one of our seniors. He says we have a good amount of Paloozas, that's what I hit his quotes. And it might be something like on a Friday afternoon, kind of doing pumpkin palooza, which is decorating pumpkins for Halloween. It could be gingerbread, yeah, exactly. It's
talking.
any excuse that we can have to get them together and work together as like a community, and they really enjoy that.
And that quote actually from that kid was in response to a freshman was embarrassed to be an anchor, and he was upset that he thinks that kids were making fun of him. And the senior said to him, like, Anchor's a pretty cool place. Like, I wouldn't be in my senior year without Anchor. He said, we have a good amount of paloozas.
And we've also, we have Project Adventure that comes in, does group with us, with the freshmen and sophomores once a week. And then we do 2 field trips to the Project Adventure site as well, as a whole program, which is huge because it's adventure-based counseling for the kids, kind of like challenged by choice. Which is a big event for us. We raised donated food for Open Door this year. We've had relationships with the community impact unit with Gloucester Police Department in the past. We really try to like get them community involved too, because you know, it's bigger than just the school.
So there's no student, like, there hasn't been, you know, they usually stay in the program, there's not a student, an example of a student who strived to get out of the
Yeah,
program?
no, yes, there is. I mean, Sienna just said that. So we have two seniors this year. One is taking a math class outside, one is taking an English class outside. So Anchor's always there. I mean, that was kind of where we came up with the acronym. It does stand for things, but it's like their anchor in this building. Like it's like their safe harbor, right? So they feel safe, but that we let them branch out at the same time.
And then when they come back to us, we're problem solving things that come up in those general ed classes. So being an anchor is really important.
They also branch out for electives too, so
Yeah.
they give examples
Daily.
of common subjects that some go out, but more and more go out for.
And some students participate in the CTE programs, so they may be in auto class for the afternoon.
The other thing is that the way that the high school is set up, by the time you're a senior, the only academic classes that you actually should be taking are English. They're taking 5 courses by the anchors this year. That's what we're getting them ready for.
You say about senior, Kelly?
Yeah, because you need 4 years English and 4 years of math, but history and science should be done your junior year. So, I mean, sometimes we have students, we have 33 students in the program right now across the 4 grades, but that number changes literally daily. Because there are students that are in general ed classes or in a different special ed kind of placement and it isn't working. And so they will come to us. And so sometimes we do have to play the catch-up game with those type of students because they might have failed a couple classes last year before they came to us. So they may take more academic classes as a senior than just the 2. But you know, that's what we're doing. We're getting them ready so that they have enough credits to graduate.
We have a little bit more flexibility, so versus the typical 5 credit class from September to June, we do semester-based classes. So it just allows them to be able to catch up and earn as many credits as possible.
We also have the ability to allow students to do Plato courses in our academic support, so they might do online learning to make up classes as well. Before they, like classes that they may have got a 50 or above before they came to us.
The only question I would have is like, I think the middle school said they have 9 people.
We have 33.
33,
Yes.
so it's almost like the math doesn't make sense to me, like it's
Yeah.
like it's a math, but so.
Each class, the majority that we would have is 12, and in a class of 8 to 12, we would have a para with us. And there are some classes like freshman year, we have very small classes,
To begin
usually
with.
between 3 to like 6. And then by our senior class this year is actually 12. So we have 12 seniors that will be graduating from the program this year.
So the trend is that the program gets bigger, the higher the bridge.
Why do you think that is? Why is that?
We have students that come back to us from out of district placements. We have students that have never had special ed services before, but are found eligible in high school. And then we have students that are getting special ed services in a regular ed classroom, but it's not working.
So we have referrals.
Okay.
Question, the RAISE program, how does that,
The RAISE program is a dropout prevention program, not for special ed students.
okay,
And it's not at Gloucester.
right, I know it's not in the building, sorry, I just,
Yeah.
putting it all.
Yeah.
Thank you.
And then we have also the GAP program, which is
Right.
special ed, but it's outside of the building.
Right, it's what, it's special ed what?
Up outside of,
Is
it's
that
a placement outside of
Is
the
that
building.
the report? Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
So sometimes we have students that might go to GAP from us, or we have sometimes students that come to GAP, that go to GAP and then come back to us.
Gotcha, I didn't realize that relationship, that's great to know, thank you.
So the difference is the special ed between GAP and
No,
Anchor?
Raise and Anchor, the difference is special ed or not special ed. GAP is also special ed.
The GAP is a
What's the
smaller
difference between
school
Anchor
day
and grade?
and smaller classrooms even than we have. So GAP is 2 teachers and smaller classes.
I'm just trying to think, how would you determine that, which student goes where between Anchor and GAP?
Least restrictive environment, and we're the least restrictive because we're a full school day, and that would be a team decision.
I love it.
One important piece of information about tonight is that it's Kelly Carvel's birthday.
Oh, yeah.
Thank you.
Happy
for
birthday.
spending your-
Thank you for having me. Thank you.
Yes,
Yeah, we do.
we should actually order cake.
Yeah.
Oh, we can sing, let's sing.
That's not bad.
Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday, dear Kathy. Happy birthday to you.
Made it all worth it.
I'm waiting for the.
All right, to finish us off here, we've got Rachel. Rachel's our district coordinator.
We can let these guys go.
That's
Yeah.
Thank you.
Happy birthday.
Thank you, guys.
Good night, thank you.
Oh, no, I'm fine. Yeah. Better get the skeleton put on. All right, so yes, my name is Rachel Clemenzi. I oversee, the other district pieces from pre-K to post-grad. So we've been talking about a lot about reintegration for these other district students this year, especially just with, the change in special education, the new director. We've had just some different, incentives that we've, been talking about, and bringing back those students to their home community is super important. So we've been looking at opportunities and seeing how we can do that safely, efficiently, and to make sure that it's a long-term plan for the student and it's not just transition after transition. So we have, the first piece of this is to ensure students have meaningful opportunities to be educated in their local school and community. So we want students that not only to just return, but to be successful. So this means building pathways that give them like all the supports they need to strive academically, socially, and emotionally within their home district. So that's what we're trying to build throughout our special education programming, which it was a nice segue because we got to hear about all the programs. I'm heavily involved in all those programs, so I need to see really the population in those programs, if there's any appropriate fits for out of district. And if those needs align. So I go and observe the programs in the district, all the program leaders and I connect. And do observations outside so we can really see, what the needs are out of district and what we have to provide for the district. So we identify when students are ready to return from out of district placement. So this readiness is important. We're looking at the full profile of the student, the strengths, the challenges, and the supports that they need, the supports that they currently have at their current program, and what our supports look like. And can we mimic that safely and academically and meet their needs? Building a vertically aligned system of programs within the district to support their success. So we want to build a structure that supports these students at every entry level. So they're not only just successful when they return, but they continue to be successful. So they come to a program at the elementary school, then they go to O'Malley, they fall apart again, they have to go back out. So we're really trying to build the systems of support within the district so that when they come back to O'Malley, we have a program at the high school, or we have another option at the high school, so that these students are sustaining being in their home district. And it gives them a sense of, belonging. And a lot of these students, they don't want to be jumping around from school to school. And we do see that when students are back in that they're successful, that they're thriving. We brought in a couple of kids back who really were motivated to come back to the district, and you can see it. They're part of their community. They're involved in sports. They're not on an hour bus ride. One of my out of district students is part of a football, soccer team. Has to take an hour bus ride late to practice. So it's that part of belonging to the community, alleviating the stress from the student. And we want them to have access to high quality education, like right here at home. We don't want to have to transport them to other districts. And they need access to their peers and their friends that are close. So we do have a process for considering these students. So Dr. Jarvis and I work extremely closely on these students. So students are identified potentially to return back to district either through a 3-year reevaluation. Sometimes I'll have a parent call me, like, we're interested in having our student, like my son or daughter return. What does that look like? What programs do you have?
And I'm very honest with parents, like if the child is not ready to come back, we do not want to set them up for failure. We want them to be set up for success. So sometimes it can be a 3-year plan. If they're in elementary school, we can think about what it would look like at the high school, what their goals need to be, the data that needs to be there. We need to be safe, no elopement, whatever their behavior is needs to be significantly mitigated in the outplacement before returning to this placement. So this really, the first step is team meeting, parent contact. Sometimes I'll go out and do an observation of a student and I'm like, there is no need for this student to be at the district. We have the capacity in our district to support them. I'll call the parent and I'll say, we don't need to do this now. This isn't a now thing, but we want to get them back here. Come look at our program, come meet the teacher. Let's talk about this. So it's not a process that just happens. It's a lengthy process. So I have some students who may be looking at next year. So they're coming to look at the programs now, talking to the teachers. The teachers from their current programs are actually coming here with the parent. So the parent feels supported and not like we're just talking them back, like it's actually an appropriate fit. So it's really a team process. But this is the first kind of flag to show us that the student's ready for the least restrictive environment. We also have to assess the clinical readiness. So we look at the student's ability to self-regulate with support, their mental health needs, predictable behavioral patterns. So once their behavior gets a little bit more predictable, we're able to manage it a little bit better if that's the area of disability. The capacity to function in a least restrictive setting, engagement in learning. Also involvement of outside providers and family alignment. So a lot of the other districts have like outside counseling. They're part of a lot of community programs. So we really want that wraparound support and get all those members involved so that this is successful. So if we have a student considering coming back, all their outside therapists will come to and like, what are you seeing? Do you feel like they're ready? Are they motivated? So we're all on the same page. And a lot of times the students in the meeting because they want to know like right then and there what is happening with their plan. So they're really part of it. But the important piece of this is really those wraparound services and that they're really come back. And then we do a document review. So once those 2 steps happen, I'll reach out to the coordinator, principal at the school, let them know, we have a potential. We had a team meeting. We discussed the student's readiness. We'll do a document review, we'll review the clinical notes, behavior plans, their attendance at their current placement, their current service level, and like our capacity as a district. So like what services are they getting now? We'll look at the IEP, what services do you have? So we do that a lot with like the anchor program, done it with some of my West Parish kiddos. Just looking at like what we have here versus what they're getting and can we replicate that? Do they really need that still? And really kind of looking at the documentation. Then there's an observation of the student. So once this has all happened, typically I like to have one of the coordinators or someone in the building go out and observe the student. I've already done that piece, but I really want their eyes to be on the student. I don't want it to be, me and my decision. I want the buy-in to be there at the school. I need them to see that they can handle the student and we're not just throwing the student at them. I think some of them are like, whoa, you're bringing this kid back to district. This is too much for me. I'm like, go see him. We'll have a conversation. This isn't this is a team process and we need to make sure that we can support them. So usually the coordinator will go and do an observation. And this piece is critical because it just gives us a real-time insight into how they function from day to day. So the coordinator can see their functioning in classes and electives and really look at their programming and see if it's similar. The next step is the student visits and has a tour and an interview. This is a really important process because we want to see how the child responds to a new environment. So coming into the school, it's a change. They get to experience and see how the student is in a new environment firsthand. Sometimes with out of district students, we do see behaviors like ramp up right when they come back just because the change is so significant. But once they, realign into their day and they feel safe again, the behaviors go back down and they're successful. So it's nice that they come in, they interview, they get to see the program, talk to the teachers, everyone's on board, they're all ready. It's not like just, the students coming back tomorrow. There's a really well thought out process to this. And we want it to be successful because if they fail, I'm going to go to them and say, oh, I have another student for you. And they're going to say, no.
They can't say no, but you know, we're gonna get pushback, and really, we want our students to be in our community with their peers. And that is really just a team process. And then the last piece is that team-based decision-making. So the transition is thoughtful, it's data-informed, and it's truly in the best interest of the student and their long-term success. So we've gotten all the way to the bottom of this list and, you know, determined like we're just not ready. We're not there yet. Let's give it another year. Let's take some data. Sometimes I'll have the placement will call me within 3 months and say, there's been no behaviors the last 3 months. Let's have an IEP meeting. Let's look at this. Sometimes the students will say, like, I really want to get back to the high school, and I'll sit down with them, like, what do we need to get there? Like, to mitigate this, you can't be using that language. It won't be, you know, they're not going to stand for that at the gap. And we've had students come back who were motivated by doing that. So student motivation, district capacity.
The transition is to the GAP program, is that what you're saying?
So the transitions for whatever program is most appropriate for the student. So we've had students transition to Anchor, GAP, O'Malley. We have students that could be some inclusion students that have just kind of been in a district placement and don't really need to be there anymore, that have inclusion services. So it really just depends on the student need. But yeah, they've come back to.
If a student, if you know, you start this process and you approach a family or whatever, and you begin the process, and the family decides, like, you know what, we do want to come back, but the school-based staff says, oh, we can't handle this. Then what happens? Because don't they always have the right to be back in our schools if they choose to?
So the parent wants to come back. I just want to make sure I understand. The family wants to come back, the staff can't support it. So our recommendation would be made through team process in the IEP meeting. We would have to look at the supports that we have, even if the family wants to be back. If we can't safely support that student and that's the team decision, then unfortunately, we can't make that proposal for them to be in the home district. We do need to educate them appropriately. So we will send out those referrals for different placements.
Sure, we'd have to be able to implement the IEP if we can't, then stop. So parents don't make proposals, the district does.
I see, okay, that's helpful.
There's a distinction.
But I'm glad you asked that because
They are part of the team.
Right.
I was kind of thinking the same thing, but the opposite, like if the parent said, the school said, well, the district said, we think you're ready to come back. Is it possible for the parent to say, we don't want, we're fine where we are, thank you? Is that?
That happens a lot.
All the time. It happens all the time. And really what I like to do is I like to pull the data. I really like to get the parent involved, like bring them for a tour. We look at the data, we look at least restrictive environment. So like as a school district, like we are legally obligated to provide that for the student. So we can propose a program back to district. If the family does not want to do that, you know, they can exercise their rights on their IEP and have a stay put and stay at that program. We're not forcing any family to come back to the district. There are processes that we could potentially, you know, go through legal processes, but.
So we always want to connect in with where the child is and the family is. So like, so for instance, let's say the student is not just replacement and is in 10th grade. And so the question would be, or one of the questions could be like, what's the long-term goal? What's the long-term plan? You're not just replacement. And what if it was, I want to go to college, 10th grade, I want to go to college. Is this our district program that has therapy first, academic second? It's typically what a therapeutic program would look like in a district placement. Therapy first, academic second. The rigor of those academics will not be as robust as the therapy. It's why it's there. So that would be part of the discussion to say, we have an opportunity with a therapeutic program in district with a rigorous delivery of instruction or options of instruction. So that's a better alignment if there's readiness there, right? So there's all kinds of angles that can be discussed to illuminate really what the long-term goals are for kids.
I do want to say that coming down there, as Mike and Rachel, you know, we're going to put this process in place, we follow it, you know, starting last year. It's a long time, you know. It just and it varies. First of all, typically takes quite a long time, you know, and that's good because we want to be thorough. You know, as Rachel described, you know. School-based staff are involved in a number of parts along the way. You know, it's not something that's being done to them. And that's really important because as Rachel said, it's really also about trust. You know, it's not something we've done too much of. At this point. But we want to make sure we're doing it well, it's serving the students, serving the family, but also that as these folks have said again and again, you know, our building success is built in when they return. And that's success for the student, also success for the whatever teachers are working with them. And there's gonna be success on both of that because then you continue to build the muscle of, oh, this is a good process, it's thorough, it works, and we can keep on trying. That really depends on how well we do it, honestly. But the process and the way they're operating and working with schools on it, and doing it in a very, very measured way, is just we want that.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you so very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you, Rachel.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Hey, Rachel,
Yes.
great job.
Oh, thanks, Gary.
And Dr. Job is very impressive.
Thank you.
Please. So I want to actually just sort of recap a couple things, you know, one, going way back, because you talked about the autism program, you know. In each of the panels, really, you heard autism program, you heard like the same things, same methods, same approaches, same types of needs. You heard the same, so, and you heard across the different panels, you know, so whether it was therapeutic or the autism, or even, you know, yeah, you heard about inclusion and how they're considering inclusion and are considerate about it. You know, and that's, I think, the biggest shift is we're becoming more sort of methodical. And what I mean by that is, you know, not in a you know, rote way, but there's real building of our practice in these areas, of people working together, of teams working together, of having similar approach no matter what school you're at. If it's a, you know, similar approach based on similar, you know, need or disability and sort of stuff. And so I hope you've heard that. Is one thing. I think the other piece is that really acknowledging that the investments are working. There's still great ways to go, and there's still you know, either two things. One, either starting up, and also they're all very complex. You know, but it's really you know, and the investments you made were in additional staff for larger programs or new programs, and there's additional support in terms of program leaders or administrators. So again, you had 3 examples of that here tonight. You had Patty Bernhardt, West Parish, Leanne Bradley from O'Malley, and then also Brooke Gray from Beeman. Because Brooke Gray, if you don't remember, is now a program leader at both Holy Cove and Beeman, but that allowed us to have more special education staff at Plum. Okay, by altering her position. Okay. And also she's a very strong program leader as well. So these are real capacities. And so and that's just the programs that we invested in and you invested in. So again, it's really working. You know, these are stronger, with stronger staff, stronger approach. And also folks really being on the same page in a more significant way than they have in the past. And again, it's still growing, still tenuous, but I would say a real big difference from last year, and prior years, a tangible difference, and that's making it a difference in many people's lives. I hope folks, you know, sort of got that.
I think the one thing that I came away with tonight was a couple of things. I don't want to speak for the staff, but the buy-in. You know, there seemed to be like people seem to be on board. There seemed to be a lot of synergy between the programs, and I was like, wow, it's in a different place than it was a year ago.
You know, maybe progress the year before, last year, sort of stuff. So I don't want to, you know, people work really hard on it, and it is very hard. I mean, these folks' work is, you know, really challenging. They work really super hard. They're really dedicated, but and you know, there's some better support and good investment and better, you know, design that they're building. You know, it's not like someone's building design for them. They're really working on themselves. So huge credit to them, and it's really working together. Appreciate your investment here.
I have a question for Mike. When obviously you knew what the programs were here and some of the key approaches. I know you came in and did your own, fact finding to figure out. Were you surprised at, I should say it differently. Were you excited at the challenge of making this be, more like specific programs, more purposeful about inclusion and kids' success to be, like this whole approach of kind of not, you're either in or you're out, and now it's a very, it's a gradual process for kids to be supported and see success, but not, and hopefully avoid more failures, which probably isn't good for any student. So were you excited about that challenge that you took on?
So, yeah, so, I can just, I can, yeah.
I work with the assistant.
Well, this is, yeah, so with any challenge, there's always, there's some turbulence, right? There's change is turbulence, right? So it's about management of that. And so it's not my first paper in that way, so like, right? So I know the playbook, not to suggest, I just did a paper, carbon copy of where I was for 12 years, and here I really looked at that, what the student population was telling us, and I used their, it's really about facilitating, previous to this, they were just operating isolation. So those clinical teams are so important. You heard them all say really how important that is. Now they're working together. Now they understand really what we're trying to do.
And now they have peer support.
Yes.
And collaboration, and they're not in it alone.
Yes. And so it's, I can say I'm really proud tonight because I just heard some things that I don't get to hear them a lot because we have a dialogue, but I didn't get to hear some of those things. Like
that was really impressive.
Well, it's I was really
yeah.
That presentation we had. Very informative and passionate and impressive and makes you proud.
So much.
And the care comes through.
And we're still a work in progress.
Yeah, work in progress. Yeah, work in-
But
It's
no,
never done.
I only say that just because we gotta keep on working at it. But I agree, I was glad that all, folks here, also two school members, because, like we try to do, our staff that really help us learn a lot, and about some of the most important work we do. Appreciate it, Mike, appreciate the whole group. Yes.
Thank you.
Really,
Thank
thank
you,
you
Mike.
all for coming.
But we do have a long meeting.
Yes.
Okay.
Good job.
What?
How much more, I think? Also, budget priorities, want me to, just go over that and that?
Yeah, you can keep right
Okay,
away.
great. So, mentioned, that we are developing budget priorities this month and want to get the school committees sort of, the buy-in and sort of stamp approval on that. Let me share this with them. And, you have with you, I'm going to share in one moment. So, we're doing the budget a little bit different here this year, but really the only difference is really sort of getting nailed down our budget priorities this time of the year. So then as we develop as we work with our staff and our school leaders and department heads, what we know what those are sort of ahead of time, okay? So what I'm gonna share with you tonight is our what I'm proposing our budget priorities for FY 2027. This comes from work that's already been done with our school leaders and also our department heads, okay? And we work in consultation with them, sharing back a draft with them, getting input from them, okay? And I'm gonna run through, we already shared that with, went over this with the Building and Finance Subcommittee. And I'm gonna show you a few things. First, just on the screen here. So I'm gonna show you 2 slides of the priority, okay? So our highest priorities are on this, and all these nice colors will come into play in a moment. I'll explain it to you. But first and foremost, tier 1 instruction. Okay, so high quality instruction that engages students in deep learning and leads to improved academic achievement. Okay, but also part of that is the professional learning, the curriculum materials and the tools to support it, okay? Specifically in that is inclusion and co-teaching. That's our tier 1 instructional approach. Okay, inclusive practices and co-teaching. And then also another part of that is professional learning and development for ESPs. Okay, so they are supporting, in the general education classroom, special education students and others really have the skills to do that well. Okay, so tier 1 instruction is our highest form. We need to really to improve that. And one of the real indicators of that is, as you see in a lot of our results, academic results, we're talking about 30-40% meets and exceeds. Yeah. Okay, that's pointing out it's a tier 1 or core instruction every kid gets every day, a challenge. Okay, that's the area we really need to focus on improvement. As I said before, I like to say, and this is not me, this is like research-based evidence and sort of common practice, is when you have achievement at those levels, you can't tier 2 your way out of it. You can't just add more and more additional support outside the classroom. Okay? You don't have much time in the day. You'll never have that many staff. You have to have small groups. Okay, so you have to strengthen core instruction. That includes inclusive practice and co-teaching, because that'll help special education students do better. Okay, remember, our results of special education students are even lower than what we've seen for the whole group. And as you improve then through your core instruction, large numbers of kids on meets and exceeds on their doing grade level work, then your need to do tier 2 lessons. Okay. I gave some great analogy at the building finance subcommittee, but I can't remember it now, and I'm hoping somebody else remember it.
I don't remember it, so that indicates something.
It was really good. I think it was this one, okay? Is if your knee is having problems, okay? Folks like Bill and I are older, okay, we've got knee problems, right? Okay. And then often you'll have, sometimes folks want to go in and do surgery, okay? Even arthroscopic surgery, right? Maybe that it's hurting, I want to do surgery, okay? Well, surgery is like a tier 2 or tier 3 intervention. What often has to happen first is the muscles around your knee have to be developed and stronger. Okay, that's tier 1.
This is sort of a long.
I know.
This is really.
No, but a big light bulb went off for me at this meeting. It was my transition from tier 2 to tier 1 support.
So, so instead of going in quick first to the more invasive procedure, surgery, arthroscopic surgery, what often happens, you've got to develop the muscles that are around the knee, both below and above it, okay? And that actually takes the pain away. Okay, it reduces the need for, and some people reduce, like for me, reduce the need for surgery, probably Bill still needs surgery, okay? Or needs a replacement perhaps, okay?
That's almost the key dentist.
Yes, yes, pretty good. Okay, yeah. So anyway, so the point is, that's still our highest priority, is in investing in including, we've been doing it, we continue to do it, okay? Thanks to special education, you saw it tonight, okay? Real value what we've been doing, and we need to keep investing in these programs for all the reasons you heard tonight, okay? And also, can you invest in specialized instruction, because that's the additional services that students need in special education, okay? So those 2 areas are pretty crucial. And then also continue investments in the Career Development Tech program. We don't want to walk away from that. We've done a lot of work with public and private dollars to build up and launch medical assisting and the exploratory program, of course, as well as continue to strengthen our the existing programs. Right, can't walk away from that. Okay, so those are our highest priorities across schools and districts. Yeah.
So I'm going to say something potentially unpopular right now.
Okay.
But we've heard an extraordinary amount of information about the importance and the efficacy of the work that's happening in special ed. And I know it's a work in progress, but this was really impressive. And you started this by saying we have to start with our tier 1 instruction. But I don't know if you even realize that in tier 1, you said inclusion and co-teaching and professional learning and development for ESPs. For special, and you actually said, because we need those for special ed. My question to you is, for tier 1 instruction, for our students who are maybe almost, maybe meeting, maybe exceeding. Is inclusion and co-teaching and professional learning and development for ESPs, what's gonna bring our district up in those ways? Because what I'm seeing here are things that are more focused, again, on the special education model.
So inclusion is actually not a special education initiative. It's an instructional model, right? And what we want to do is we have done a lot of work to get high quality instructional materials in the hands of our teachers. Research-based, strong curriculum, right? But we need to strengthen the access for all students to get to access that curriculum. And if you dive deeper into our numbers, we're seeing where we're really struggling is our students on IEPs and our ML learners they're clearly not accessing the tier 1 instruction we have. So we need to adjust our tier 1 instruction through inclusive practices. Co-teaching is one inclusive practice. We might have to be providing different technology for them to access it. We might need to provide small group learning or inquiry-based learning or things like that that will bring more students to the table to access the curriculum and the standards that we are teaching. So it is, you can't, I think one of the things that we need to make sure we keep saying again and again is that they blend together.
So,
And I understand one more thing, which is, remember, you also recently got presentations from both middle school and K through 12, focusing on the work that has to be done to improve writing instruction, for example. And I'd also say the first part of the tier 1 instruction, that's all geared to all students, particularly ones who are not special education students. So just to build on what Amy said, is like, yes, and because all that work, with wisdom and mailing, okay, and it's all tier 1 instruction, and all has to continue because we're not there yet. But that's all for all kids,
right,
particularly kids who are generally educated.
So great, and I appreciate that. And my question is, like, for instance, the writing and the reading, right? Those, and I know as a parent, like they're making kids do these reading logs, and kids are having, there's really a ton of encouragement happening. And that's great. But I don't see that listed. I mean, like that.
But that's right. I'm sorry. Just to point out, that's all in this first chunk here.
Okay.
I mean, that's when you say high. I mean, sorry. You're looking at the bullets as if they're more than what's above it.
Okay.
Okay.
All right.
But what's above it is more. I mean, that's the sub.
Right. High quality instruction that engages students in deep learning is the point.
Yeah, that's the point. Right.
Okay. Right.
So maybe that's a messaging thing, which is helpful to hear. Because I don't want focused people, and this is highlighting green for a reason you'll see later, okay? But no, it's really tier 1 instruction is the investment. These two are sort of subsets of that.
So
components of it.
So yes, because in my mind, my eye always goes to bullets.
Yeah.
And it always goes to highlights.
And it goes highlights.
The first bullet is just lighter. It's a component.
I'm just saying,
brain science draws your eyes to the.
I will. Yes.
But focusing this on high quality instruction that engages students in deep learning, like that to me, like that's the point.
Yeah. Great. Very helpful.
I can also share with this, so
listen, that's what this conversation.
With inclusive practices and taking on co-teaching, which is an inclusive practice. So what that does is puts 2 certified teachers in one classroom. You just reduce your teacher to student ratio significantly. Right, but it's actually more than that because there are strategies within co-teaching where you have flexible groupings and you have a range of groupings that you can do to even further reduce your student to teacher ratio. So that's a deeper learning side of this. And it's not just, the mistake is that it's a diluted delivery and it's a weakening. It's actually strengthening for high performers, middle of the way, and students that need more support. So it's those 3 categories that can be addressed through co-teaching.
100%. I think we hit on what was confusing me.
Oh,
yes.
I really did the color.
Got it. No,
The color's coming
I got
later.
it.
Pay no attention to the color.
we got it. No, it's very helpful. It's really helpful because really the point is how do I engage? I mean, that's where we got to focus.
That's the
That's the
goal,
goal.
and that's the subset. That's
Right.
one of the subsets.
Right.
Because to
Yeah.
me, also is, the goal is to have all kids learn at higher levels.
Right.
And some may need
Right.
teaching and that.
Yes.
Others need just more rigor,
Yes.
higher
Right.
quality, making sure the curriculum materials
Right.
and whatever support or challenge they need.
And Laura, this is what I was saying, I've been so tier two focused, right? And he's saying tier one, and I'm like, but I want tier two. But then when it was explained to me,
Right.
it's like, if you're doing what you do or need to be doing in tier one, then you don't need to tier
Right.
two, because the tier two is the destination that we don't want it to be,
Right,
right? So,
I get it. Yeah,
but that
no.
was my moment, so I was asking questions about it as well.
Right, great.
You want to front load it, not reactionary.
Yeah.
Correct, yes.
So then there are other levels here, okay, and these are will be different, okay, they're need to, so this one's continue because of things we've been doing along the way. So we need to invest in, so multilingual learner instruction, curriculum service and support, so we've been doing a lot better on service and on support, okay, also belonging on this, also connecting with families, okay, so folks know more and more that they're an important part of our community, okay, we need to do more than that, but we also need to we did some recent work this past year and this year on instruction and curriculum, but need to do more of that. Okay? Concerning, there are areas that are of concern, which mean we may not, because remember, this is always about choices, okay? We may not be able to invest in as much as we need to or we want to, okay? But I want folks to know they're really on our radar, okay? The tier two academic support, right, we talked about a lot. And then transportation, okay? Transportation is really tricky because you don't necessarily have to invest new dollars in it, okay? Well, yeah, we don't really, but it's a real concern because we know we've been informed of two couple of retirements, before beginning of next year, essentially. That can really impact our ability to get all kids to school, very honestly, okay? Also, another thing is because we have added programs, we have more kids in district-wide programs. As we said before, most of those kids are being bused or in transport across the schools. Those routes actually have to become longer.
Right.
If we had more drivers, we would divide those among drivers instead of just adding more kids to a bus. The challenge with that is longer runs, meaning that we've had to change times to either earlier pickup or that's during the school year we've had to. So you don't have the domino effect. If the first school has a longer run for a program, then that can back up the next run, which backs up the next run, okay? A good example of that is because, Viva now has the two classrooms. They weren't really having they weren't having educated buses come before, but now I think they might have one. And then Omega might have a longer one. So those are just more impacts of fewer drivers, okay? We've had some luck recently of getting some applicants, okay? We've been advertising pretty well, a lot more, I should say. But as you all know, that pipeline is long and there are many potholes and bumps and things along it, okay? Literally, yep. So just want to make that folks aware of that because that can have an impact on budget or operations. So some of the real priorities. So then the excitement in the colors comes now. If you turn to this, okay, right? So let me just explain what this is. It's a bit of an exercise, but the exercise was designed to show you that we're not making things up. Okay, no, that the plan is kind of working. Okay, so if you go to the color, the colors are there. This is, if you remember from last year, it's the first time we did a long-term plan on budget. These are positions we want to add in upcoming years. We didn't put a time frame on that, okay? But what we did is we took the priorities as they are and then we just categorized all the things listed in last year's long-term budget plan, okay? And we just see what came out, okay? So that's why you have, the printout was pretty, but not great. The yellow is just your programs, right? Yellow is just your programs. The lighter yellow on this is socialized instruction. So if you're going from the top here, the first six, eight or nine district programs, you see in the middle column there, the sort of yellowish green column, what we were able to add. In the white column, and just an explanation of what was approved, was accomplished in the FY26 budget.
What do you need? You want one of these?
Great. Some people have two. Oh, sorry.
I have mine from the meeting.
Great, thank you. And then if you get down to and then the lighter yellow is specialized instruction or supports, okay? So for things like ESP for behavior support, okay, this is like services, special education reading teachers, okay. Last year we did 2 of those, and we're hoping to do 2 more at some point, okay? Special education reading teachers, that is. And then you move down to the green, remember green is tier 1 instruction, okay, so that's inclusion, co-teaching, all right? And developing our inclusion approach. And then you get down to career voc on the bottom of this page, it's blue, it's career voc tech, and then you can see, and a lot of that is about things that are grant funded, depending on the operating budget. I'm not saying we're doing all these things next year, it was just sort of a check to see what we identify our priorities that fit with what we were doing last year. Okay, if you turn the page to the next page, then you get into tier 2 academic support and then transportation, okay? You'll see there are a number of things that aren't categorized. They don't naturally fit into categories in our priorities. Some of them actually probably do. Like, you know, I think you can make an argument that world language teachers, then coding specialists, visual learners is probably tier 1 instruction. Okay. Just like we haven't, you know, and I think you also might get into some of the instructional hardware could also be considered tier 1 instruction, and every student benefits from it. Didn't want to just play out the exercise too much, but what's heartening, I think, for us, and I hope for you, is that most of these things are in alignment with the priorities we're proposing for next year. But, so just want to sort of check. You know, if we had very few of these things shaded in alignment with these priorities, we'd say, well, what's going on? Either our priorities have changed, or we were off base last year. So seems like we're trying to, you know, and we always say you want to make hard left turns, you want to keep on building. I think this shows us that that's where we're headed.
And can I ask you about one line item?
Sure.
There's a line item on here for a K-8 librarian.
Yes.
So that looks to me not like replacing the O'Malley librarian,
Yeah.
but something broader.
Yeah, that's a thought we've had. You know, and that does, I think, library in every school and every, okay, but that's.
And a library.
That's 2, probably not gonna happen. You know, and so we found this one could be a step to get some things organized, you know, help organize other folks who help in the libraries, and it's, you know, leadership there, and maybe some programming as well. We sort of see that as a possible step, maybe more feasible than some other ones.
Okay.
So, what we're hoping is that next meeting, we'll present these in a little different way, okay? Good colors, okay? Some rearranged bullets, just to make it a little clearer, you know, just, but hoping to get your support and approval on this. And then what you can see going forward is we build a budget based on this, and then you see budget priority presentations sort of expanding on these ones. So they're thinking of it. And you might see in some schools, they need to, you know, from their standpoint, they need to invest in more, say, multilingual learner for education, and then another school might have it more important. So this year we want to build, you know, inclusion and co-teaching aspect. But that would allow us to focus in on continuing to build from where we are.
Yeah. Absolutely. We're starting a little bit earlier this year. I don't know if you noticed that. It always feels like it's earlier.
I don't feel like the last one ended yet.
Yeah, kind of, sort of, you know, the difference, just to, as a reminder, folks, I've said before, just to remind you, is that, you know, January is usually when we do budget prior presentations. That month will be a little less this year. We'll really do those in February, okay? But that gives us some time to go from here, you know, to there.
Okay.
Especially it helps doing some work quickly because we're having from Gary to Cody. Gary has, and we worked with Gary, but Gary has offered to. He offered one thing and I said, how about a little more?
Come on, Gary.
And he's gonna be helping us, you know, Cody will be on leave a little bit. When else is in public?
Yeah. Yeah.
Because we have a baby girl.
Happy New Year. Wow.
So, Gary will help out into February.
Just when Gary thought he was leaving.
Gary's gonna help out into February, and I think through February, if I remember correctly, a little bit, you know, every week. And So I really appreciate that time.
Thank you, Gary.
Yeah, you're welcome. Yeah.
Work from home.
All right.
So I guess next week again, a little format, a little bit different, a little more straightforward, okay? But that's my priority. Okay, great. The budget and finance, right?
You want me to go into that? Yeah.
Yes, please, Melissa, subcommittee report.
So I'm gonna skip over the priorities part of the section, because we just got that update from Superintendent Limits. As we have on our agenda every month, we talked about out of district transportation and out of district tuition. Our tuition has had a minimal change, and Gary, correct me on anything I say, I had lack of sleep last night. And
Sure.
tight. And I think it's based on the fact that we still have 2 students, looking for out of district placement. However, each month it gets cheaper to educate that student because time is going by, which means 1 less month of tuition. So you'll see that amount go down. However, I am told that there's still a little threshold in there in case, a safety net in case a student moves in.
Right.
And out of district transportation, we have more accurate data. We have an assistant transportation director who's improved the record keeping. And as you know, I think I sent this all to you earlier. So if you read it and I'm being repetitive, I apologize. So our transportation is in the green. We're good. We're not over budget. An interesting conversation we had was about the bus cameras that we heard about. So Superintendent Lummis gave us a good presentation on that topic. He looked into other districts that are doing, or nearby districts, Salem PD, participated in a pilot program at no cost, mostly to gather data on the new state law change. So in other words, in order for our district to have these type of features on our buses, we would have to get city council approval, and a PCO or some sort of regulation would have to be developed. And they're working on that at Salem and PVD as well. But their pilot programs in Salem and PVD revealed a high number of violations. Although there was some accuracy concerns about what the video actually captured. Neither district has fully implemented the system due to those challenges that they're working out. And one of those challenges is having the police capacity to review those leads or those pieces of film and determine whether a crime has been committed and it was actually a violation of regulation. So the vendors that provide these types of cameras do a revenue share model, meaning they get a percentage of the fines collected. So that's something to take notice of. About the intent of those devices. PBD is currently collecting bids for the cameras for their buses. We did an early estimated cost, and it would cost anywhere from $770 to $2,770 per bus, which would equate to a bid that I believe we got for about $34,000 to put cameras on all 18 buses. We need to look in for more information, look into new vendors, to determine what kind of video streams we would want. Would we want it on the cloud? We want it in home, like on a DVR. So there's a lot to consider for these cameras. As you know, I think we reported before that we had asked Laurie, our Director of Transportation, to capture some sort of log of any violations that's going on, so we can know firsthand what we're actually dealing with. Even though it wasn't updated at our meeting, Gary sent us an email shortly thereafter with some information from Laurie. And the results were that during the time period of November 14th through December 4th, Easton Avenue had 17 occurrences. East Main Street had 5 occurrences, Essex Ave, 7 occurrences, Maplewood Ave, 4 occurrences, Western Ave, 4 occurrences. So there was a total of 37 occurrences just in that short time period. That the bus drivers noted to Laurie.
a
Right.
vehicle like passing the bus when it stops.
So that's bus driver observation and letting the director know.
But just reach out, this is just new, I mean, I reach out, I haven't heard back yet, because I just reached out to them today. The chief of police to see if we can get, so we know what time, we know exactly where it should happen, it's a pretty condensed spot. Okay, the violations were all oncoming,
Wow.
they weren't
They were
cars
passing
traveling
us, they
around.
were-
Okay, they were oncoming, and to see if we can get some police presence at those two different times, the morning drop off and the afternoon, morning pick up afternoon. But again, that's, just to see if we can get some help with that, don't know yet, and I'm positive. Chief is always very helpful in so many ways, so if they have staff to do that, I'm sure they will, but I don't want to get too far.
That's amazing.
But-
I didn't see any reports on Washington Street.
I was just gonna say, I'm surprised.
Yeah, so this is, it's really early, I don't wanna take too much, learn too much from this a
Right.
little bit. We have one hot spot, we, identified from this. And it's still self-reporting now, so it's, some folks may not be reporting it, it's okay, we'll keep doing it and then try to get everyone to report. But yeah, but again, I want to do some step-by-step on this.
These are more of observations, not necessarily
Yeah.
technical violations, right?
Yeah. But also, so we're gonna, can I just add in a couple things?
You can.
Yeah, so also reach out to a whole lot of superintendents now and know like at least 4 or 5 other districts who are implementing them. So we'll learn, and just to learn more, and we'll go back to building finance about that. So we're in the process of learning much more about not only who's doing it, but how their contracts are arranged. We've heard the one group that both Peabody and Salem was involved in, the same group, had the revenue share thing, which was surprising.
Yeah.
I think surprising other folks, I saw your reactions. But we're not sure yet how other folks are doing it, other companies doing different, maybe it's doing a straight fee for the technology, so we'll learn that. And come back to building finance and come back to all of you, so. We'll have, I think, good information about all of that and go through the budget process and see if there's something we want to do or can do or that sort of thing, whatever.
And we may not know by the time we're done with the budget process, it's a learning.
Yeah, we'll see.
Because no one close to us is really doing it, right? So they've done a pilot program, we haven't done a pilot program. So we may not need a pilot program if there's good conversations that go on with the police to get some more police out in some designated areas that are having problems. But it's definitely an ongoing discussion to see where it leads us.
Yeah, okay.
The other thing we touched on, correct me if I'm wrong, Melissa, is, just being more vocal about it, as a community, saying, hey, this is something that we're concerned about, we're maybe some sort of public campaign that says,
And there was also mentioned, Laurie, the director, is looking into these like longer arms that go out when the stop sign comes out, so it kind of prevents, or there's more of a visual there as the cars come in there.
And how about we get some paint that paints their car as they go along, and they catch them red-handed.
So there might be some alternative measures too,
Right, I
right?
think the public education campaign is a really good idea, because I mean, I just feel like when I drive around, I feel like there's people who just didn't learn certain lessons about driving. Right, like, no, but people don't, people don't pull over when there's all sorts of reasons that people are
Or
just.
they're on their cell phone.
So,
Stop signs is a suggestion.
so it's absurd.
but what the law is that when the lights are flashing, even before the sign comes out, you're supposed to stop. right?
Totally.
Like, the sign
The
doesn't.
minute you see that school bus slowing down and the
So
lights flash.
one challenge we always have on public campaigns is just the graphics.
Yeah.
It's the
So
graphic.
any
Who made the bus driver graphic?
that was Kelly, I'm pretty sure.
That was good.
Okay, yeah, we're getting better at it. We have some skills,
Well, I
but it's
think,
also often the thing that gets.
if you start, with the police presence. And then, follow up, or like as part of the campaign of awareness, people start to learn that there are consequences. And if there's more enforcement, we might not need these cameras. But my question about the cameras is, who's determining what's a violation? Is this AI based? Are they analyzing
It would
these
be the
films?
police, it would be the police reviewing the data from the camera.
Okay, so they have access to the footage.
We would have to.
This is something we gotta learn.
That's what we're figuring
We gotta learn, you know, because there's sometimes when the company's reporting the violations, I've heard, okay, but that's what we gotta learn.
And they have a positive incentive to have more, like, the financial incentive to catch and false positives and all this stuff I'm concerned about, right?
Well, that's
Which is why we're going deliberately here and we have to learn about all of that, cause I hear you on that, and that's the first thing, you know, that I thought of, was like,
Yeah, financial incentive
Right,
to.
absolutely.
Yes.
Okay, moving on very quickly, we got an update on the maintenance work, the work orders, the ticket system that we have that's been very successful since we implemented it years ago. Between October 1st and November 17th, the district logged 139 maintenance tickets, closing 104 of them, which is 78%, which is a good percentage. There's a lot of information on that system and they work way closely with administration and teachers and principals and resolve issues. Just because a ticket isn't closed doesn't mean it's not being worked on. It could be part of a bigger project or waiting for a part or waiting for a person or something a plumber or a certain type of specialty service. So it seems that system seems to be working well for us still. And then we talked about the budget transfer that was approved in the consent agenda. If you have any questions on that, I can answer. And that's my report.
Thank you. Okay, next item of business is action. The first is a vote to approve the addendum agreements to the Gloucester Teachers Association successor contract. One is evaluation rubric, the second is course reimbursement timeline, and the third is list of stipend positions.
You voted for these in executive session, you also have copies of them. Should have been copies of them as well.
I didn't get copies. They were in the packet.
In the package.
We got some a while ago.
Yeah, right, yeah, this is at your last meeting, so
Oh, I wasn't.
what you should have is, so maybe, no, I didn't print a copy of all these for everybody. But there are some copies
I was in-
and it's in your pack as well.
It wasn't.
I didn't get it.
So if you want to discuss it more, look at it, you
I
can,
just take it. I
but
looked
you
at
have
it.
already voted in
Yeah,
executive
I need
session.
extra copy.
Pass down the-
Okay, do we have a motion to approve?
Second.
Was she gonna make a move?
Okay.
Wait, so move from.
So move the motion because I thought Kathy made the motion, but she didn't.
Melissa moved. Second.
Okay, any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Okay, and then next item is second reading and vote on policy IKFE, competency of determination, which is a new policy.
Right. Which is required by the state and which Amy informs me must be in by the deadline of this month.
Yes,
I'll have copies of that for you.
This month, did you
This
say?
month.
Wow.
So when the vote last November to take away MCAS requirement, state asked us to come up with a competency determination to take its place. We did that very quickly last spring for the class of 25. This is for our longer term fix. And so basically, this is not the full graduation requirements. It's just the competency determination part of a graduation requirement. Gloucester Schools requires more than this for graduation. But this is model language from the state mostly. We have added passing grades instead of completion of a course. We've raised that bar a little bit to make sure that they have satisfied the courses in English for 2 years. You remember MCAS is really up to 10th grade, so that's why it's going to 2 years of English. We require 4 for graduation. Mathematics, the requirement is Algebra 1 and geometry. Algebra 1 can be taken in 8th grade or in high school, depending on the student's trajectory. But it does count if it's taken in 8th grade and they have a passing grade. The change to science, We were able to expand it beyond biology, which tends to be a very language-based heavy test on MCAS. So we are able to add physics, chemistry, and technology or engineering to have a passing grade in one of those courses completes it. And the state is requiring us to add US history, 1 year of US history for the graduating class of 27. So we added that on.
And that is that a state requirement?
That's a state requirement, yes. And we are asserting that all of the courses that we offer in all these capacities meet the state standards, so that if students pass, they are meeting the state standards. There is some opportunity or distinct language about students with disability, English language learners, late enrolling students, as far as what we can do in addition to make sure that we can do transcript reviews, we can look at other course requirements as determined by district administrators if we need more information, and so forth. And then we added, what we changed last time in the appeals process, the reach out in writing to Gloucester High School principal, and then that would initiate a transcript review. We moved that from the last and just put it up more prominent into the appeals process of what the process is, and it does match what's in the handbook. Yeah.
On that appeals process, is the determination by the high school principal final?
Yes. The other thing I do want to just say is that the state just released graduation requirements for the state proposed. That is going to take, in my opinion, years to flesh out, and there's going to be great debate about it. And so I suspect that if and when that gets passed, that will supersede this.
Right.
But I expect, and I was at a conference last week that Jesse advised that this is probably going to hold us for at least the next 2 to 3 years, if not longer, for when the new graduation requirements are actually finalized. Okay.
There's a motion to accept.
You do it?
Yeah, motion to accept the competency determination as stated in file IKFE, I think it looks like this.
Second.
Moved and seconded, any discussion? All in favor, say aye. Aye. Okay, and then we have one grant to accept, and that we accept the fiscal year 2025 FC 31 TC Skills Capital Technology and Equipment Grant in the amount of $113,000. Second. Okay, all in favor, say aye. Aye. We are going into executive session pursuant to executive sessions pursuant to Mass General Law 30A, Section 21A, to discuss strategy or to conduct contract negotiations with non-union personnel, and we will only come out to adjourn. So.
Second.
Chair Clancy.
Yes.
Mr. McKinney.
Yes.
Mr. Melvin.
Yes.
Ms. Wilson.
Yes.
Mr. Minio.
Yes.
Ms. Press.
Yes.